it if you well, I see it's on my YouTube
Oh,
shit, so I can click it.
just so you can see the live chat and all that.
Or I can do it. I can find it. Hold up. If I go
If,
to your channel, I think it'll be on there, right? This is when having multiple devices is real helpful.
oh yeah. It looks like it was meant to work out that way. Because it seemed like interference. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't have worked on your computer, to be honest.
Oh, this is like a 2002 MacBook or some shit. I mean, I'm surprised it functions. It's basically a glorified iPod that when I torrented a bunch of music. Okay, I see it. Cool.
Oh, okay, I was about to message you right now.
Yeah, I got you. I'll click it and then I'll paste it over to Facebook.
Sweet.
Oh, I should probably turn mute on or something because, yeah,
It's
there's a delay. Whatever. Yeah, this is my first time ever doing this kind of thing. So now I look how absurd I look.
Shout out to those of y'all in the live chat. I love how Gemini this is already. Like we no formal introduction. We just go straight into.
It's straight up. No, I'm not offended, but like the original date that we had kind of landed on was April 1st. I thought that was hilarious, just for synchronicity's sake. And then we've been fidgeting around a bunch even as of today. So it's so genuine. Like I'm not like I said, I can roll with the punches, but all right, I'm definitely adding link. All right, and then I'll be on your attention. Cool. And I guess yeah, I can see comments. What up, y'all? All right, but yeah, I mean, I'm a Gemini Sun and Moon. We could talk about that later. But you're a Gem, Moon, Sun, or rather Sun and Moon Cap, right?
Yep.
I mean, I can pull up your shit in a second. I don't know. You want to just start talking around about random stuff? I gave a reading. I don't do readings. I'm not an astrologer, but I gave a reading to a family friend today who's a Sun and Moon Aquarius, third house, and I've got a shit ton. I have a stellium in 11th house, so it's like peas in a pod in a very odd way.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
that's
Yeah, it was
really
pretty dope.
weird. Well, I'm a gem. You're a gem. We're all gems, though.
Gem gang. That's how it works. And
Gem
I mean, this is a strange time for us, dude. Like, I know you get it because you get astrology and stuff, but it's like between the internet. I'm 33, right? So like, I remember growing up with like, I would constitute myself as a millennial. I don't really know how that all works in terms of like sociological differentiation, but like digital as if over analog. I'm not fucking really around with, like records and stuff that doesn't really resonate with my reality. But like AOL startup noises, and all that kind of stuff. Point being, Geminis are primed for this era. There's so much information exchange and ideas floating around that we can surf this shit. I mean, that is the essence of why I even do the Team Rabbit Hole stuff at all. At some point, it was just like, hey, I need to like kind of ride this digital wave well, like instead of kind of getting turned up by it or whatever.
No, that's yep. And I think one of the I got so caught up that I was thinking that we had to rush, like, oh, take advantage while it is, and it's like, no, there's really no like, as long as you are a gem, if anything, like, it's. I like how you said it's primed for us right now, and Libra and Aquarius too, which they take to different levels, but
we're kids on the playground now. You know what I mean? Like for us, it's just like, oh, word. There's so many options. I think the other ones might have a more intuitive kind of like understanding of this is the birth pangs of the age of Aquarius kind of thing. But we're like, fuck yeah, open access to the Jurassic Park or whatever. It's like, right? Let's do this.
Oh my gosh. And you are definitely tied into one of the biggest synchronicities I've been seeing. And it all came full circle right now. And I feel like we're activating something.
My left ear just started ringing hard. FY Izzle. So keep talking about the sync thing because I'm all about Jungian synchronicity. Like that's my jam.
Yes. All right. Well, first of all, welcome to episode 93 of Peace Talk. This is the Peace Dealer. You know what it is. You know what it do. To think we're 93 episodes in, which I mean, to a serious podcaster, they might do 100 episodes like in a few months, but this is still very personal to me. We're so close to 100, and we got the OG Jim Kincaid. What's good, bro?
It is what it is. It's all good. It's hilarious. It's the 93rd episode because that's a huge. I'm not a Thelemite, but that's like a huge Crowley magic thelema fucking number, like Flight 93. I don't want to get off into conspiracies right now, but that's like a very magical occulted number for some people.
That's what's
So
up.
interesting. Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure anytime I do a Gemini peace talk, we spend like 20 minutes going in on conspiracies. Cause like,
Oh, we can do that.
yeah.
But be prepared to go down the fucking rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Like straight
Yeah.
up. I've been doing this shit for a minute. So it's not. I have no real commitments to any. It's kind of a connoisseur. I mean, this is 11th house sun shit, where it's just like I'll check it all out, but I'm not gonna necessarily join your cult. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
We're curious. We just want to see what it's about. Talk about.
Exactly. It's like licking the battery, as I like to think of it.
So, nice. So that's so leading into the synchronicity.
Mm.
The one of the things that really connected me to you was when you would tag me in your Team Rabbit Hole posts. And even the first time I saw it, I felt like a deja vu or just some type of like time slowing down, like, whoa, there's something here. Like I couldn't put it in words, but it's like, oh, this is dope. Like, because especially what I was going through at the time to just kind of like,
When was that?
Oh, it had to have been.
I mean, you don't have to give me like exact coordinates or anything, but it's like I'm pretty sure. Well, you keep spitting, and I'll tell you when I became aware of you, and maybe that'll contextualize it or whatever. But
if it
I
wasn't,
wasn't tagging you before I knew you, obviously.
if it wasn't 2 years ago, I'd say maybe
It was
year.
about 2 or 3 years ago, because
Yeah.
2017 I was in Switzerland the whole year, and I was off the internet essentially, which is when you started getting your shit really rolling. Because essentially, Diane Nolan, a client of yours, a former client, she one day, it was weird, like back in 2016, January, February, March, maybe, I got turned on to Leo King by her, and I was like, oh, word. Because I mean, it's, you know how sync works. It's just always the waves of what you need to resonate, and the magic comes to you when you need it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, she probably hit me up with you, and I watched y'all pretty steadfastly, straight up. You guys offer very different kind of angles, but it seems, I don't know how to put it, but it seems it kind of goes in line with what you're saying about the sync deja vu kind of thing. But I don't know David Palmer's chart, and I just looked at yours, so I haven't really like looked at it, and I should probably pull it up straight up. But and I'm gonna do that actually while I'm talking. But it feels like old friends from a past life or something weird like that. I can't quite put it. I don't know if it's Uranian energy stuff or what.
That makes sense.
But I don't want to project like the crazy, the hyper woo from the get go. I'm not like we were blood brothers, or I don't know.
Well, I always see Geminis as brothers and sisters, and I have the South Node Leo, so
word.
They're my brothers and sisters too. So I know you're not just saying. I know there's great credence to it, and it's a shout out to Mercurial Muse. Yeah, she's mad dope. Really,
no, she's really cool. I've been trying to pick her brain forever, and she's going in hermit mode pretty hard these days. But but she's on a hard wave, similar wave. I mean, it's like there's a few people where I don't know how to put it. It's like I've seen a meme before that really exemplified it well. But it was like, I don't know if you've ever been to a concert. I haven't been to that many, ironically. But like if you look over, if and you're all high or sober, it doesn't really matter. But if you look over and you see someone there on the same wave, and they're like, yeah. It seems like almost a soul version of that, where I'm like, okay, yeah. Like you're like, there's plenty of astrologers, but there's a few that I'm willing to pursue with my time. Like you're the first person I've done rituals with, straight up. Like this year is like my first ritual magic, if you don't count Christian, like the Eucharist or whatever. But because that's magic.
That's what's up. I'm honored. That's what's up.
Yeah, and really more recently, even like the past 3 months, maybe 3 or 4 months, you and Apollodytes rituals on Future Life, and then your stuff. It's been powerful, dude. Because when I turned on to you, you were getting in gear, but it seems like the whole year I was unaware of you. You were really building. I mean, you've got a presence now, much more so than when I was aware of you. But your nature hasn't changed, so props for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're staying true. I mean, and I've seen some of it. It's funny because I turned on to a shit ton of random astrologers at the same time. Leo King, Amber Khan was one, and I'm not against her, but obviously you guys got some beef going on or whatever, which we don't necessarily need to go into. But even just the fact that it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Point being, all wrapped up around Diane Nolan. You shouted out to her, and I would highly agree. She does stuff down in Florida, so if anybody checks out. I think her Facebook name's Diane Marie. It's not Nolan, but anyway, check her out. She's got cool shit.
Diane is dope. I love Diane. She always says something that like keys in. I know she has a Scorpio moon, so there's depth there.
She cuts to the quick. Yeah, dude. That's Scorpios. I mean, they're the one energy that is like a love-hate relationship for me. I think that has a little to with an old roommate that I had that was a Scorpio that like beat up his dog. Long story there, but I mean, they could be an intense group, right? My sister's an Aquarius who's divorced now to a Scorpio, so I've always just been like warier of them. But at the same time, what they can plumb in terms of the mystical depths is kind of it's obviously archetypally specific to them.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about?
Everything. Well, I wanna finish off what I was saying before. Like,
word, my bad.
No, you're totally straight. I'm glad you actually went there. But it's amazing because like the posts you tag me in are always kind of relevant to what I'm going through. So I kind of saw you as like, and this was when I started coming into an awareness of angels. Once I realized you're a Gemini, I was like, oh, it makes sense now. Or you have a Gemini sun. So it wasn't until recently the huge synchronicity that I kept getting is we're all going into this infinite rabbit hole. We're going into this crazy rabbit hole. And then I'm peace talking with you right now. And I'm like, wait a minute. This has to mean something. Maybe you're bringing us all down a rabbit hole with this peace talk right now. I'm reaching.
Well, I totally agree. And it's weird because I'm going through, I mean, aren't we all post 2012? Going through very personally like weird shifts. We can talk about Christianity and stuff, which is what I've been raised on and would identify as like a redeemed individual. But at the same time, clearly I'm doing magical workings and into tarot and astrology at a level that I find them as more than just really interesting explanatory factors for reality. I think they're part of the woof of reality at a very, I mean, it's like almost like the scripting of the Matrix is how I look at these things, where it's like when Neo's looking around and he sees the shit going down, it's like it's a way of representing reality in a certain three-dimensional space.
No, go ahead.
No, well, I know that it gets tricky because I mean, I'm still developing and blossoming in my own consciousness or whatever. But I don't want to limit what astrology can be. Sometimes I'm like, is this true for now and here? Like, was Aquarian energy a thing before humans were around? Like, how much? Like, this is the Gemini 11th house shit, right? Where it's just like, I tend to think about all these angles of stuff that I like, but maybe not hold on to like I said, I sip Kool-Aid. I don't necessarily always gulp it down and say yes, yes, yes. But watching you and a few other astrologers has made me realize. I mean, and there's a few videos. I mean, I could reference. There's a 21 Faces of God as a tarot video I just watched recently, which is fire most. But everything. I mean, you get it. And I'm just going off on a tangent, so I should probably shut the fuck up. But everything's a polarity and a spectrum within that polarity dance. So on the one hand, it's like nothing is real and nothing matters. In a way, like it's all a dream. Just don't like hold on loosely. But at the same time, we're committed to roles in this play. It seems and embodied and imbue it. Like we're witnessing this and stuff. So the characters, like the scripting, like I said, of the Matrix or whatever, that is astrology and stuff. Whether it's eternal truth or truth for now, I'm not sure, but it's true as fuck. You know what I mean? So it's like like I'm high on it, and it impresses me more and more. And it's actually probably the area of life that like causes me the most novelty joy right now. Like I'm a musician, and that gets me off in a way. But that's like kind of paths I've trotted, even though I'm improvisationally heavy. This is like it feels like I've stumbled upon a new toy. I mean, it's like learning. This is Gemini shit. So it's like, oh shit, there's a whole new school of thinking that I was never privy to just because I was a repressed Christian, basically. And it's like, oh my gosh, and now I'm reading it into it, like talking to this lady today, and I talked to her like an hour, 2 hours maybe about her chart. And it's at the point where I'm in, like I could probably do astrology, not as a career. You're doing it like hyper hard. I could probably do it for charging people, but I find such a joy in just exploring reality through people's chart and just kind of conversing with them about it and seeing if it's still like, hey, I see this through this methodology. Does this resonate? And they're usually like, what the fuck? I'm like, exactly. This is why I love astrology. This is the dope. Fire most stuff. So, golly, I was jamming on there. The whole point we were talking about, I guess, originally was astrology and the matrix scripting, but you could see right away. It's like I get lost away with thoughts pretty quick, so I'll shut up.
I'm cool with that. No. That's the whole point of this talk. Like,
Word.
please feel free to say as much. I love how you mentioned like being redeemed because my neighbor, one time I was driving out and I saw him driving out and he had a magic wand. He was dressed to do because in Vegas, like there are people who perform magic shows and especially when you're
you're in Vegas. I forgot.
Right? Yeah, and
I've never been, but that's a crazy place. Yeah.
Sin City, yeah, like when it's kind of like, you know, any other craft. Like I didn't realize the magic show community was like deep out here. So you'll have people who try on their way to get up to like the David Blaine level or the Chris Angel level, like they'll do shows or whatever, or just they'll do workshops. So I saw him dressed up. You know, he's a Sagittarius. His brother is actually a Gemini. He does a little magic too. And
not like a Sag. The Sag is like,
yeah, no, not like a Sag. Like he's in it. It's actually dope because he hooked me up with the opportunity to read tarot cards at an event or whatever. But I asked him where he was going. He said he's going to Bible study. And I was like, oh, word. And he's like, yeah, you wouldn't normally expect to see a magician going to a Bible study. But, you know, I do both. And I was like, you know what? I was like, that's actually the way it's supposed to be. Like, I felt like I saw the perfect balance and like personification of what it really means to be a Christian. Like, you know.
This is tricky waters, right? Because I think you're on a similar wave, and we can talk about our histories if you want. Like, because I want to know about. I haven't just watched every peace talk or whatever, so it's like I have a feeling that a lot of people are like, "Oh, tell me about you, tell me about your chart." So you can be as autobiographical as you want, but this is probably like very rote for you. You're probably like, "I've told my story 25 times." But spill your beans as much or as little as you want. Clearly, I'm coming from like, okay, well. We'll talk about Team Rabbit Hole in a minute, I guess. But I'll just give you some context, I guess, of kind of who the fuck you're talking to. So,
what's up, Jim?
Well, 33, which is that sacred number, right?
Oh, first, what's your sun, moon, and rising too?
Sun, moon, Gemini, Leo, rising. And I could go off on more, but like I said, sun in 11th house, moon's in the 10th house. So it's gang.
So your rising sign is on my south node, which now makes perfect sense why you felt like a brother from a past.
Kindred.
Like it's facts. We are. That's
word. Yeah. Same thing with Leo King. I mean, he's a Leo, right? And I don't know how this works. Well, I mean, we could talk about it if you want, but it's weird because like I said, it's this polarity of dance between like all is one. So holding on to identity too much has problematics involved. And at the same time, it's like, holy shit, these specific articulations of being that I am and you are and all this jazz really make the performance, the play, the movie, however you want to put it. I always think of it kind of as a film, but that seems so disassociative that I don't want to come off like loopy.
Yeah.
That we have roles to play, and whether we've chosen these roles, which sometimes I resonate with, and whether we're given these scripts and it's just like go improvise, it doesn't really matter ultimately, probably. But yeah, you're dead on there. I mean, you could probably explain what you mean more by that. I know South Node. My South Node's in Scorpio. Woo! I'm always like, was I like
your South Node's in Scorpio?
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
I guess. Because sometimes I'm like, was I like sacrificing people in religious like sex or something? Like it feels like dark. I'm coming from some super dark shit because I think I even have some skip steps based off of my Uranus and some Scorpio. I could look this up in a second or whatever.
So we both have rising signs aspecting each other's nodes, which is important. That's awesome.
That's some portal shit right there. K2 Rahu shit.
Shit,
yeah. All right, so let's rein it in, Jim. I gotta focus. So
before you do, disclaimer: anytime I do a peace talk with someone born on a new moon, that's a whole ritual because like the new moon energy to anyone watching or to anyone partaking, you give people the gift of this fresh new energy. So
Totally.
everyone watching this is about to get an epiphany of the truth.
Oh,
So you are rabbit hole. We're walking through the portal right now. That's amazing.
dude, it's a rabbit hole. It's a team endeavor. It's a team rabbit hole, right?
Never-
So we'll get to that later. So long story short with the Christianity, because I want to kind of hear where your head is at with it. That's why I was in Switzerland. I was really basically getting to a point with my own faith where I'm like, look, all the pagans want me to shut up about God or Jesus particularly. And I see Christ as like the philosopher's stone if we're going to go into an alchemical thing, or like it's not just this because I take it seriously, but it's very. I'm in a weird point right now with my own faith, so I'm not going to proselytize ever. Start there.
Yeah.
People can figure out whatever they want to do. They're entitled to that clearly. So I'm not the kind going, oh, you need fire insurance, turn or burn kind of stuff. I'm coming from a very hardcore. My grandpa, well, let's put it this way: I'm a third generation Christian. Both my parents are Christians. My dad actually just converted to Roman Catholicism from Protestant, like in the past few years. Yeah, he's a Cantor. He's kind of weird like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, why do you need Mary and the Pope now? I was like, what's up with that? I think he just wanted liturgy and more like ritual because Protestantism tends to be way more academic and just like, do you agree with this? Do we all agree? Like, it's more of an intellectually based thing, and that's clearly because of when it was popping out during the printing press era and the thinking Reformation. I mean, not just the actual Protestant Reformation. Anyway, so I'm coming from my grandparents started up in Manhattan, where I'm actually at right now. I'm visiting my nana before I go to Ecuador for 6 months.
Awesome.
I'll tell you about that later. Because that just happened like a few weeks ago. It's random as fuck. No hablo. So I'm like, what am I doing? But anyway, my grandparents started a church, well, they started a Bible study after they've been in a few places over the years, and they were up in Manhattan in the early 90s. And there's a guy named Tim Keller who's pretty much like a heavy hitter in theological circles, actually like a really strong thinker. Like he's the only Christian that has ever challenged my thinking to a degree where I felt both inspired spiritually, but mentally it wasn't copping out. Like a lot of Christian spirituality feels like it's like, well, I believe this, but man, I'm making some faith jumps here. Or, you know what I mean? Like it feels like there's a mind spirit disconnect sometimes. This guy does a really good job of not doing that. Anyway, his church was started basically in the Bible study of my grandparents. So I'm coming from pretty heavy hitting, right wing conservative, Christianity, which I'm not. Like I'm apolitical at this point, but I guess I'm a registered independent and all this jazz. But anyway, so I've had some experiences both on DMT. I've had an astral out of body experience, which was pretty gnarly. I mean, if you want to hear about that, I can make it a quick story. Where I met Jesus in like the 4D when I was in high school. I'll tell you this really quick. Yeah, so like there's things that have happened to me enough where I'm like, okay, there's more to the picture than meets the eye, but is this me experiencing my programming vanilla sky style? Like, am I hitting like my own subconscious and like parameters within my mind, or is this externally valid like real? So I'm at a point where I'm like, yes, Christianity is dope, but like right now today, like I said, with a non-Christian, I'll sound very Christian, but when I'm like doing Bible like reading or whatever in the morning with my grandma, I'm like, this is not inerrant. Like this is a guy in a culture and a time saying this, and I really hope the guys who edited the Bible aren't like Trump. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to take everything with a grain of salt. And something that I learned in Switzerland, where I was at this place called Labrie, which is kind of a Christian think tank hostel, where I was an RA for 10 months. In the Alps, which was pretty dope. Anyway, I had a dark night of the soul that was basically like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Everybody's epistemological framework, like how you operate in reality and think of things as true, is like an epistemology is like how you know something to be true. So there's really a few informers that are that. So it's like your culture, experience, like knowledge and facts, like 2 + 2 is 4, so that's verifiable. And then I guess you could say like in Christian thinking, it would be like the Bible is a revelation in a specific way that is going to tell us things, or like texts like that. Like there's things within the matrix that like are pretty original, if you want to put it that way. But I had this moment where my glasses came off a little, and I was like, oh shit, nothing is certain. Like it was a very ecclesiastical moment. Where I'm just like, if anybody's, and the same thing with astrology, ironically, that's why I'm like, I love it to death, but I'm willing to say, like, you know what I mean? Like it's 99.9% very, real to me, but it's like, I've always got to keep a little skepticism, because if anything is full on, like, oh, I'm certain of it, it's like, there's real danger within that kind of hubris, potentially. That's where you get like crusades and cults and craziness, when people are like really committed. But at the same time, it's a paradox, because I mean, what isn't a fucking paradox?
Right.
No, everything's paradox. That's the bottom line. So everything, it's like I'm living between this tension of Ecclesiastes and Isaiah, basically, where it's like I have a hope and a kingdom and a future and a redemption of all creation in such a beautiful way that whatever sin just means missing the mark. So it's like whatever kind of things have happened are going to be rectified. But I mean, that is very, I don't know. I'm at a point where it's like death was probably always a thing, and we just fell into consciousness in a particular way, and now we're like, I don't think perfection was real. Entropy's been, you know what I'm saying? Like digestion takes death, like cell division takes death.
Right.
So sometimes Christians are just like, oh, we were like glowing and holy and in a pre-fall state where we didn't stub our toes or have any aches or pains, and it's like that's naive.
The older
Like
I get, the older I get, the more convinced I am that most Christians are batshit crazy.
well, okay. Yes and no.
And
Most
I
people
don't mean,
are.
most people are, yes. And I don't mean to say that disrespectfully, but I'll explain after. But
No, go with
just,
that.
just to think about, the reason why I say most and not all Christians are batshit crazy is that you have a healthy view of being able to see more how like this book isn't truly inerrant, because that's really what it comes down to. When you really
Yeah.
when you really think about like the things that most Christians believe as gospel truth, instead of reading it as a spiritual narrative, it kind of reveals more how you're taking this faith that would have been actually dope if it wasn't corrupted by the timeline it is, because the Christianizing of the whole Christian faith and putting too much extent on purity to where you're judging people based off of subjective perceptions that you're using the Bible to interpret and receive. I feel like
there's a lot of layers to it.
Exactly. I feel like the Bible is actually dope, but Christians,
it's a holographic text that
Christians
is
kind of make
crazy.
the Bible. Yeah.
I mean, it's seriously real and important, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and be like, this says this exactly. Like the other day, I was talking to my nana, and I was like, you do realize the letters of the epistles are essentially kind of like Facebook posts, if you want to put it that way, or conversations he was having about his faith to other people. I don't know. His intention probably what, I mean, the spirit works in weird ways, so it's like bigger than just his shit, but it's like, this isn't it didn't fall from the sky. It's inspired as fuck, but it's coming through a lisp of a human experience. Like the ineffable is God. Like God is beyond gender. God is beyond form. Jesus as man God or whatever is, in my estimation, and this is where it kind of gets dicey, because I think this turns people off, because it's like, oh, I don't like that. But it's like, if God was to become articulated in the human experience, that's Christ. Like, it's like,
oh, definitely. See,
to me,
right? Yeah. Really understanding that Christ, because I wanted to, and I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because it's really having me like personally reevaluate beliefs. I wanted to say that I went from being Christian, coming into astrology, denouncing Christianity, and now realizing that like there are hardcore themes that I grew up learning in Christianity that shape why I have integrity. And then me realize, okay, no, I am.
And the Cap Moon, bro.
And the Cap Moon, right? But I realized, like, based on how Christians describe being a Christian, I wouldn't be a Christian, and that's where we get into the different denominations. You have Gnostic Christians, you have like Pentecostalists, especially before Christianity was a thing, because it was never really meant. I'm pretty sure Jesus never had the intent to be like, one day there'll be Christians who follow me, even though there's a verse that's like, be like Christ and follow me. I don't think he meant it like that. But let me not speculate what Jesus may or may not have meant.
Well, it's tricky because when you look at the text, if you use a text to defend a position, that's essentially circular logic to a point. That's what I've been arguing with Nana.
Exactly.
It's like, look, just because it says something, you're hoping the editing process was good and proper, which I tend to believe. But like the Book of Enoch's left out, but Jesus was talking about that shit, and the Book of Enoch is like the Avengers Infinity War of
I was
books.
I was talking. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I was talking to my sister yesterday too, and she was asking me if I went to church, and we had an argument because I'm like, well, because the way she was describing it, she's like, well, if you're not doing it the way that we interpret it in this book, I know you meet with your collective, but you guys, if they don't believe in Jesus the way we believe in Jesus, then you're not going to church. And
Right.
we
It's
had
like a "are you in or you out" kind of like thing. And
basically
that's first of all, that's modernity kicking in. We're postmoderns now, so it's a little different.
exactly.
That is a lot of Regulus stuff that we're dealing with that it just left and entered Virgo in 2011. But the culture at large is still trying to be very imperialistically dominant. I mean, Roman Empire, British Empire, American Empire.
and that's where
It's
I'm
been
saying
by
like
force.
the influence of those cultures on Christianity. I feel like we're having to release that this whole
1000%.
dogmatic traditional approach. And it now that I'm older, because I've been in this since I was born. I did not have a choice. I had to go to church. I had to read the Bible. I had to be told that I was a sinner growing up. Like there's so much shit that we're having to like break through. And it's making me realize like there are some grown adults that really believe everything written in the Bible factually happened.
Or literally, like my
Literally.
grandpa was like, "Don't cremate me because Jesus was resurrected." And I mean, it's just taking things and extrapolating way too far with some things. And that's everybody has the right. That's free will. So this kicks
And they'll
into the
say
story of
that the devil took away the information. That's where we're getting to. It's like, how do you reason with people who are so brainwashed? And I've noticed people going back to Christianity, and I feel like it's out of fear. I feel like they're being told,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're worshiping the devil, utilizing your gifts. You need to come back here." And this is where like there's some magic in the Christian faith, but that's why they get mad at people who channel, because if you think about it, the people who wrote the Bible channeled it from God. Like, but that's why they say, oh, this is the inerrant word of God. God writ it himself.
Well, it's tricky stuff. So I think the fear is
It's
well
crazy.
founded, but it gets
It's
it
crazy.
gets exploited. Have you seen Heredity? The movie Heredity?
No.
Oh, it's fucking scary. It's the last horror movie I'll ever watch. If anybody's seen it, they know what I'm talking about. But it's about like spiritualism and possession and stuff, and like kind of not Ouija board stuff, but like I think the idea is this. And I'm not trying to sound like an elitist, so I've got to be very careful with this. Everything has bell curves, right? So on everything, you're going to have a spectrum in a way of people on the far end who are like not getting anything. They'll never get some things, whether it's like economic stability or love or spiritual wokeness or whatever. I think God is grace and love. So I think he speaks into people's lives very specifically in their own lives. So we don't have to look for everybody being on the same script.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's going to be people ahead of the curve a little. Um, okay, let me step back a second. The Bible is, and most religion and cultures in general are operating systems for people to function on. I mean, the point of culture is to function, because if you just strip away, I mean, psychedelics do this, and I like doing them for that reason. But if you start stripping away boundaries, norms, conditioning, and all this stuff, you start realizing how open source it is, and that is dangerous to patriarchal hegemony. That's dangerous to like stability and culture. If everybody's just drinking ayahuasca and fucking anybody they want, there's consequences to that. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't work for society. So for us to even get where we are, we've had to have certain kind of pinball. I mean, there's been a lot of Saturn involved, right? Like there's been limits, and there's been restrictions and rules.
In the words of
Um,
Savage, a lot.
oh, I should be reading that shit. My bad. I haven't even looked. Yeet. That's what's up.
No, you
Um,
should.
I do. I mean, I could go off on this for a while. I don't want to bore you, right?
No, this is
Uh,
not boring at all. This is. I didn't realize how. I
I
didn't
know Christianity,
listen.
like balls deep. I know it. I've come to a point. Okay, I mean, okay, let me tell you some stories, but let me wrap up this other thought. The whole point is, I like my hope isn't in Isaiah. I mean, if I think there's this gets so tricky because I don't like sounding condemning, so I don't want to sound that way. So I have to preface by saying, let me just say this is how I see it, and I'm always opening my position, so it's not like set in Ten Commandment stone. Irony alert.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, I think that there's a difference between like all cultures. Okay, so like if you go to Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism, right? You're going to look at the petri dish of reality that it popped up in. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think everything's arbitrary. Like things happen for a reason. There is like we're Geminis, we're going to see this shit. So there's logic. That doesn't mean logic is all there is, but like there is consequence and Newtonian
Yeah.
cause and effect basically in spiritual levels and in realities like that. So if you go look at Buddhism and Taoism and these things, sometimes I wonder. There's a movie called Tree of Life, which has got this image in it. It's a Terrence Malick film, which is really beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's got Brad Pitt in it, and it's like this crazy kind of Gnostic film. But the guy's a Christian, so it's really far out. But these are really beautifully done films. Anyway, there's a scene in that where it goes back in time, and it shows a dinosaur choosing not to kill an animal that's like another dinosaur in the creek bed. Basically, it's like there's basically like a raptor, right, or something like that, and it comes up on like this weak ass thing that it should kill. It's maybe not hungry, and it's this flash of compassion, you could say. And one has to wonder, though I do think God and creation is held together by love, and like it's all love at the end of the day. There
Yeah.
had to be some level of integration of new programs, if you want to put it that way, compassion being one, where they weren't before. Like there was a time when the moon wasn't a thing, and so lunar cycles and like it's not an eternal idea, right? But it's true, and it's true as fuck for a long time, so we don't really have to go into that. But so with Buddhism and things like that, it makes sense, in Hinduism and all this stuff, and atheism, even that coming out of when it did and where and why it did, makes total sense. But I've come to the position where it's like I look at it as like if we're going to look at Genesis, kind of like because Moses wrote the Pentateuch, it's not like it fell from the fucking sky, and he was an occulted priest. Let's be real. If he's an Egyptian prince, like he was way up on some levels. So,
But I need to interrupt you there, brother.
yeah, yeah.
And this is what's so dangerous about this rhetoric. Not your rhetoric, by the way, because everything about Moses to me is very fascinating. Everything about Moses to me is very fascinating. The thing here is it took me a while to get rid of this brainwashing, because that's really ultimately what it is, brainwashing.
Everything's brainwashing.
It really is. And it's like you just said that Moses wrote the Pentateuch. We do not have any original manuscripts or texts of, I want to say, any of the New Testament. And the only way we know Moses wrote the Pentateuch is word of mouth. We have no proof that Moses even ever existed. We have
I can accept that to a point.
So
I'm just saying, based off my presuppositions, is like let's just say, I don't think Solomon wrote fucking Ecclesiastes, but that's kind of like where they give it.
I wasn't really, because I want you to go ahead with your point, but I wanted to say how subtly that affects us, because people will believe that Moses was real, that Moses was like, that Moses actually wrote this. You know what I'm saying?
Like a historically accurate character in a certain time space. And it could very much be like Melchizedek stuff, where it's like, this is an embodiment of some archetype that's being expressed through generations. Like Job was written before any other book. Nobody really talks about it.
Any other book? I didn't know that. I had no idea.
And
I thought it was the Pentateuch that was written first, actually.
That came out. So, I mean, at some point, there weren't even Jews, right? At some point, I mean, according to this mythos, it's like Adam and Eve aren't Hebrew.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's
like,
it was Abraham used to found that nation in the story. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I'm done with the story to a point. I think there's a lot of Swiss cheesing and a lot of fucking political shit. I mean, you can just look at the Catholic Church and all this shit, right? Where it's just like. Let me wrap up that thought, and then I'll let you talk for a minute, because I'm just going off. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, if we're gonna put on our goggles and just be like, what does this story say? In my estimation, and there's a really good book actually, if anybody's interested, that I read in Switzerland called "The Lost World of Adam and Eve," and then The Lost World of Genesis and The Lost World of Adam and Eve, and it's academic, but it's beautiful. And it really opened my eyes up to the fact that we're in a tabernacle. Creation's a tabernacle. of God in a way. So, I mean, that's the whole point of 7 days of creation. That's a holy, like, these are numerologically resonant things where people back then would be like, oh, that's how long it takes to consecrate a temple or whatever. Like, we're not thinking that way because our culture's gotten so diffuse with so much. It is what it is, right? So we've lost some of the truer essence of things, but at the same time, we probably have some more interesting insights now that they would never have. But so I'm at a point where my contention is like, well, there's a few things. First of all, I've made like peace with the devil at one point on acid. I was just like, look, just like Judas had to pull the trigger, like there had to be kind of a guide to do the thing to cause things to go forward in a specific way. I think the fall was, I'm not going to say it was planned, but people tend to be like, oh, it was perfect and everything was whatever. And then the devil came in. It's like, well, if this book I read, The Lost World of Genesis, starts talking about like what the Hebrew is actually saying. And it's like, it's a chaos creature. It's not necessarily evil. And it's like, it's a trickster. Essentially, it's a Hebrew trickster. So it's like a trickster came in and did some shit. And we chose poorly, I guess, because essentially we were stewards of creation in the same way like a priest would be a steward of a temple. And we kind of neglected that shit. And that's Christ is the new Adam. This is why that's all relevant there, because it's like he's doing what Adam, quote, couldn't do and fulfilling his duty as a consecrator of the creation. You see what I mean? It's like we don't have to worry about
Archetypal, yes.
Yeah. So in my mind right now, because I mean, I'm coming from Protestantism, but it's going to be way more Protestant, like pagan at this point. Because I mean, like, I'm into New Age and shit. Like, it's like, it is what it is. Like, we're in the apocalypse. Like, we're in the unveiling.
We're in the last days that,
definitely. Like, 1,000%. But you could say that I watched The American West, this crazy documentary series by Ken Burns on Netflix. And I'm watching it, and it's like, just talking about genocides and stuff. And I know people think about this intellectually, but just kind of watching the history and how brutal people have been, but also while they're like, what, you're going to church and holding a Bible and saying all sorts of crazy, like there's been such a disconnect between religious people and spirit for so long that it's like, we've been in the end days for a hot minute, but it's just, it's getting really ratchet now. Like AI might be the Antichrist. I'm not going to get into all this all the way back. The whole point. God creates, let's just say, ex nihilo, right? Let's like in the beginning, whatever, boom.
In the beginning.
And and I'm not trying to just have a Christian like talk so we can talk about other things. But basically creation is good. It's made by, for, and through love. The Trinity, it didn't need to create like whatever God is. I mean, I think in terms of Trinity, but other things too a little, didn't need to create anything. It did it out of joy and love and opportunity. It's like a jam session.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm going to experiment and see what I can do. And it's going to be awesome. Let's see where this goes. So creation is good. And at some point, basically you have everything evolving, all these people groups, blah, 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 blah. And you get to an Abrahamic Covenant, which is really, I mean, there's a shit, we're talking 13 point whatever billion years of time space between that point of creation potentially and Abrahamic Covenant. But that's when you start getting into a specific monotheistic revelation of, and it's hard not to see why. And I'm not saying it is what it is. God is going to work through the culture he's dealing with in a way. So it's like,
absolutely.
If these people are obsessed with patriarchal lineage and all this kind of shit, it's going to end up having that flavor. So anyway, God does this thing. I'm at a point where it's all very gestational. So it's like a sperm isn't the same thing as you and I right now, but it's necessary to get to the fetus, which is necessary to get, it's like it's gestational. All things are gestational, and it's all becoming towards the singularity of us being aware of being in the dream as God players, like co-creators, et cetera, et cetera. So when God decides, I guess, in this story to reveal Abrahamic stuff, that's a specific articulation that I think sets up certain parameters. And this is where it gets tricky because I've heard enough about Gnostic demiurge stuff where I see why people would think that. But sometimes I think that's honestly, in a weird way, and this is, I have a lot of Uranus. I mean, I don't know if I've shown you my color chart on the astrology, but it's like Uranus. Like I'm heavy Uranus, right? Yeah. So I'm a rebel by heart, but it takes a lot for me to say this, but it's like I think we have a tendency to. God, I'm all over the place. I just realized we have a tendency to be very rebellious towards like love in a perfect way, but we can't. So it's like this paradox of like we're made by and for through love, but we're limping along, but it's all good because we're perfectly it's perfectly broken in a way, if you want to put it that way. And there's remedies within the matrix, it seems, through cultures and Christ eventually. Because like Abraham makes this covenant, does this shit, and all of a sudden, basically, what you start having is a very particular personal relationship. But consciousness prior to that might not have been primed for such a thing. Like, was a Cro-Magnon going to understand what a Christ is, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
things happen at certain times for certain reasons. So once culture was at a place where individual identity, ego development, and all these things were in a specific place enough for that palette to basically engender certain realities, that's when they start coming on the scene. And so you get Abrahamic Covenant, that turns into eventually Jews, which is cool. But then they get all uppity eventually, right? And they ossify, and they're like, we get it all. And that's the whole point of Christ coming in. He's like, you guys are getting all the rules and rituals, but you've lost the spirit. I'm here to overturn this. It's a new covenant, blah, blah, blah. I think Christianity is right now going through a similar thing as the Jews did, but not many of them want to admit that, because a lot of people are presumptive with like, I get it. The Bible is exactly what I think it is. I'm going to heaven, all this shit. And it's like,
people are becoming the Pharisees that Jesus was condemning.
Exactly. And it's an inverted kingdom thing. So it's like they like Jews were expecting like a prince on a fucking chariot to come in and lop off Roman heads, and they were like, we need that dude politically and otherwise. And in the story, it's like, a meek carpenter's son. It's like it's exactly the equal opposite of what they were looking for. So right now, people are looking for like God coming back on a fucking cloud and taking out Trump or Hillary or who. It's like they're looking, expecting these certain things, and I'm like, I would not. I'm at a point where I think the apocalypse is something of an unveiling, which is what apocalypse means in Greek. And it's a heart thing. Our heart chakras are going to start resonating in such a way, and we're going to be in such alignment that we start becoming like. It's a little. I don't want to give a spoiler to Narnia books, so I won't allude to that. But it's like being awake in the dream, and for thousands of years, most people, very few mystics maybe or whatever, have been very committed to being engrossed in the meat suit to such a degree that they've lost a lot of spirit. That doesn't mean there's not good or all that stuff, because it is all good. But we're coming to a point now where we're really en masse, in like post 2012, I think. Really resonating our co-creatorship in a new way and becoming very, very aware of what it means to be in the image of God, in my opinion, which is like the ability to create, the ability to destroy, the ability to comprehend all this stuff. And I'm excited, quite frankly, because I think what's happening is this sounds so weird. The people who think they've got their cake and eating it too for like the past 2,000 years have been like very militant political kind of, generally very militant political kind of like, we have the answer and we're going to kill anybody we disagree with, burn them at the stake, et cetera, et cetera. And because culture's coming to a place where we're basically, at least in the West, theoretically pretty tolerant of many views, a lot of the views that were snuffed out have come. This is the archaic revival that Terence McKenna talks about, where it's like, this is why I'm not into witchcraft, but it's like, this is why paganism and witchcraft is like coming back in such a way, because the things that were left out, which are dripping with spirit essentially, are coming in. And it's like, I've always looked at I'll stop talking after this. I've always kind of looked at the Trinity as like, you got Yahweh as like Santa Claus, and then Mrs. Claus is the Holy Spirit, and Jesus is the baby or whatever. So, but Mrs. Claus, like Santa's like, there's good boys and there's bad boys. Like there's Saturnian truth to things, because I think sin is something that distances us from God in a holiness kind of way, in a certain way.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to I'm not going to freak out about that, because in some way it's like our bodies are holy, creation is holy, it's all holy, but like we've somehow kind of gotten out of sync with our generally, I think people tend to be ego driven, which is functionally necessary, but it's been exploited and blown up in such a way that we like live for our lower chakras, and we live for just the things of the world, as they quote say. The things of the world are pretty much spirit, but you can see how I'm living in this weird tension where it's like everything is spiritual, but like if you're not looking at it right, it's a weird trip. So you've got to at least attempt to look at it right. But anyway, the point being, Mrs. Claus, like Santa's like, there's good boys and there's bad boys, and I'm going to reward the good boys. That's why there's holiness and like distance and, sacrifice is necessary, whatever. And Mrs. Claus is like, well, I'm going to sneak some candy into like the whole, like the spirit moves like the wind. It's like, no one knows how grace works. It's a big mystery. And I think that like,
it's also very ironic too, because Saturnalia is a huge ritual that's been synchronized to represent Christ. Like if you're going to be a Christian that actually condemns pagans, then you can't celebrate Christmas because
Exactly.
it's
It's
ritual.
like, yeah, you think the Christmas tree and mistletoe has anything to do with fucking Judaism?
Or any kind of like ritual, you know.
Well,
So
it's Norwegian, Scandinavian paganism. I mean, at some point, people who are designing the cultures were like, "Look, there's real magic here, and if we just line up these dots just right, we'll have all the power." Somewhat, and
and
that's what happened.
people celebrate to take the energy, and that's what has made me. You, I'm so glad I'm walking through a rabbit hole right now because up until this talk, I was like ready to re-embrace Christianity, and now I'm
Well, you should. I mean, I'll talk to you about this personally. I don't want to like proselytize because at the end of the day, I do say I'm redeemed. I think there's salvific truth with Christ where it's like that at the end of the day is an equation. Okay, so this is where Paul's shit comes in. It's like because I'll tell you this story. Here's the story. I've been talking so much. I'm so sorry. I know the like Sun is in Pisces. I think Mercury's in Pisces right now. I'm just like like it's dream world. But all right. So there's really I don't need to tell you my DMT story, which is fascinating, but I can post that up later if people want to hear talking to Egyptian deities like Thoth about my faith, which was gnarly, and that kind of stuff makes me think it's important when I'm talking to an Egyptian deity and they're like, "Oh, so you're a Christian? We'll say so," and stuff like that. It's like, okay, this has more merit than just like my imagination or culture. Like this seems to be real in hyperdimensional ways. But so when I was, I had kind of a nervous. See, I started waking up in 2003, and I shut that shit down real hard. Basically, like I wasn't primed for it. I started getting. This is before YouTube and shit, but I was in high school, and it was like my senior year. 2004 is when I graduated, but basically I started doing. It was like getting led by the spirit into weird shit. I had watched 2001: A Space Odyssey and read the book, and been doing mushrooms like weekly, and just like I was getting in these weird headspaces, and for some reason I started basically I was at the time I was enrolled in both high school and college courses. So when college wasn't happening, I had a lot of spare time. So during November, winter break or whatever, I was still in high school, but I'd come home at like 10:30 in the morning or whatever. It's like, oh, my day is done. So for some reason, I started, and this is cool in retrospect, and I should probably do it again, but I'm too lazy and I'm too old probably. But basically, I got into this place where I was like, and this is like led by the spirit stuff. It wasn't like I heard voices. It was just like an intuition that I followed. Um, basically I was like, I'm gonna run as hard as I can on the treadmill, like on 10, right? Like the highest level for like 2 hours, listening to G Unit, listening to like Sting and the Police, like on loops. Like I put on like a G Unit song and just have it on repeat. And I would get basically into a trance state at a high level. Like just like like and get to a point where I'm like, I don't even notice I'm breathing. I'm basically euphoric. And then I would hop off and get into a seated lotus position and get my breathing down to super long cycles. Like 15-second breath in, 15 seconds, like totally opposite trance state. And I did this for about 2 or 3 weeks. No real reason. Just like I said, I felt compelled to do it. And this is the only, huh?
Oh, I said that's genius.
Well, Gemini life, yo. Like we get the insights, but we just don't know how to articulate. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like we see it, but we're just too childish to understand how to like be adult about it. So it's like as long as we play around with things, we'll be cool. But we're not Aquarius or Sag. I mean, they're like, oh, I just talked to God. Like this is the only time I've ever quote talked to God, right? So, I'll make this quick. So basically, I'm doing this fucking thing 2 or 3 weeks. It was a while because I was just like into it, and it was like I wasn't doing it for a result. It wasn't like I was losing weight. It was like I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. And I would hop off the treadmill and think about my third eye. And I wasn't Buddhist or anything. I had just read about Zen Buddhism and stuff at like school and like in a library book or something. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna think about my third eye, like Buddha style, and focus on it. And I was like peering, deep into space, like if I could, like kind of thing, like far out there into this other place of where I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when you look up and you're trying to meditate on your third eye, it's like different kind of focus of your eyes. So one day I'm doing this and I'm listening to Alan Parsons' Project, which is the guy who produced Dark Side of the Moon. He has a album called I, Robot, which is an Isaac Asimov book that was turned into a Will Smith movie, but this is a concept album about it, which is actually pretty dope and funky. And I'm sitting there listening to this fucking concept album about AI becoming self-aware and all this kind of shit, and I'm focusing on my third eye, and all of a sudden, and this hasn't never happened really since, though I've never pushed my body and mind this way, so who knows if I could still do this. I astrally projected. I mean, I've had lucid dreams and shit since then, like crazy, but not like I popped up out and I was like, oh, this is my silver body, and I'm looking at my body, kind of shit. And it was gnarly. It was something I wasn't expecting because I don't have the cultural framework for it. Like I'm not pagan. Like my parents weren't telling me about this shit or the potentials of it. And so I'm looking around the room and I'm like, cool, there's my body. I'm not dead. I can hear the music still. It's like Inception where I'm like, I hear the music, but I'm somewhere else a little, like clearly outside of my body. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to see how far I can go. And I go around my room, go around the house, the hood a little, get to a point where I'm like, fuck this. How far can I take this? And I like go out past Earth and I get into this space that's like smoky, amorphous mountainscape, basically, almost like an Alex Gray painting, where it's like it's like Tron Outland, basically, where it's like mountains that are there, but they're effervescent. And it's like, I think of it as 4D, but I really don't know what it is. Because it was dark, but it was like mental kind of. And I'm just sitting there on this mountainside and I look down and it's not like there's angels announcing this or, you know, whatever. It wasn't like a glowing person, but I was like, there's a dude coming up to me and I think it's Jesus. And it looked like this kind of Jewish dude. It wasn't like the whitewashed kind of Christian Jesus that we get these days. And dude walks up to me and sits down. And this is where sync starts. Like, it's like what affects what, mind and body, all this kind of stuff. During this part of the album, there's this, ironically, this point where the robot is like dissembling its mind, HAL style, and it's losing its mind essentially. And there's this, all it is a orchestra of vocals, like a choir. No instrumentation, but it's just all these choir voices singing cacophonically and atonally, and it sounds like the most hellish craziness ever. So it's like a ratchet soundtrack to begin with, but I'm in this weird space and this starts happening. So I'm looking down and all this crazy noise is happening and I see all this writhing blackness, kind of like the abyss is animated or something, like Kali's hair or some shit like that. It looked like snakes, like boa constrictors or something in ink, like computer ink kind of thing. And I'm looking down and I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? And this dude who is like, in my mind, Jesus, whether this is all mental and Jungian and internal or if it's actual, I don't even really care because it has the same effect ultimately. But anyway, so I look over and he's looking at me and we're both looking down at this inky blackness and he looks up at me and he goes, I went there so you didn't have to. And I snap back into my body from wherever I am and I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? Which is basically, I heard the gospel, which is, I mean, that's the whole point of atonement, whatever. But not in terms of like good, bad, be a good boy or whatever. Like I heard it for my soul's sake in such a way that it like was gnosis, right? Like I knew the gospel in a way that like Sunday school felt boards aren't going to really articulate or whatever. So that was pretty gnarly. And that was that kind of experience is why I haven't given up on when I'm willing to push the limits on what faith is and my articulation of this stuff. Like I said, I've made peace with the devil in a way where I'm just like, you have a functional role in this. And I like it's yin yang shit to a point. It's not equal in the sense that I think Jesus and the devil like equals like that. But there's forces at play that we don't understand as humans and we may never be able to fully understand as humans. We have to respect our limitations as creatures. This is where it gets tricky because a lot of New Age is like, I am God, I am source. And it's like, I kind of stop at the I am stuff. And I'm not totally against like licking that fence, but I'm like, I think there's thresholds that I'm uncomfortable with crossing personally at this time because I'm a co-creator, but I'm not the one, unless solipsism is real. I don't know if you know what solipsism is, where it's like all in your head. But unless that's the case, like I don't know if I have the right to be saying I'm God, but I totally get where New Age type, pagans are like, this is the beauty of paganism and witchcraft or whatever. It seems there was a schism between creation and spirituality at one point. And people started looking at the body as bad and they're like, I want to get to heaven, whatever that is. And it might be real hyperdimensional shit. Like, I'm not saying it's not. But we're embodied here now. We need to be present and enjoying this like fully. Absolutely. Or, experiencing it fully, like be here now shit, like Buddhism kind of stuff.
I really believe that true New Age or pagan beliefs don't claim to be God. I really think it's deceptive I think it's important to embrace the God within because that's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, the co-creator stuff.
Everyone has the Holy Spirit. But yeah, this is all about being human. This is all about having a human experience as a spiritual being. Totally agree. And before I didn't really mean to say that when I was saying that I'm having trouble embracing Christianity, I mean in the traditional sense.
Oh yeah, dude, we should drop that shit like a dirty diaper.
Thank you.
That's why we're here. I'm a Scorpio Pluto generation. At this point, I'm like, if it's not serving us, and if this isn't what's up, like, fuck you for ever dilute. Like, most of it's been power grabs and ignorance.
Yeah.
And some combination therein.
And just fear.
Straight up, yeah.
Fear, yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but at the same time, it is what it is. So we have to kind of be like, as a Christian, I can say, well, there's a fall, and I have some explanatory power. A Buddhist is going to have a little harder time because they're going to be like, well, everything's good as such, right? In a way. And it's not absolute like that. But I think we're at a point where there's prophecies in Isaiah that are like, in the end days or whatever, your sons will have visions and dreams and stuff. And it's like, I think what we're doing is starting to resonate the kingdom, basically, through spirit in very new articulated ways. And okay, so like Saturn is about limitations. When you get a cut, like, you need that to scab over. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't, you'll fucking bleed out, right? Like, there's a function to coagulation. But at some point, when you've had a scab for a while and there's baby flesh underneath and it's ready to breathe, that scab is going to be suffocating that new skin, and it's not good anymore. Like, it's served its function and it needs to get away, and it's like needs to be removed. That's what I think I'm part of in a weird way. In a I don't. This is gonna sound tricky, so I got to say it right. Like, Paul was doing this for Jews. Calvin and Martin Luther were trying to do this, although they're very flawed people, with getting away from the Roman Church as the indulgences and like the ultimate authority and all this stuff. I think I would like to be a part of a movement, if I'm going to help talk to Christians, where it's bridging the whole pagan New Age and Christian stuff, because the thing pagans and New Age people have, or whatever, I just lump that all together because New Age is obviously more astrologically inclined, hence the title, like Aquarius and Age. And pagan can just be like witchcraft in general, or like Wicca or whatever. This is what I was saying earlier. The split happened, and it was necessary because it happened. Because if it happens, it has to happen, is my thinking. Like, whatever occurs is necessary, it seems, or else we wouldn't be experiencing it. And the Matrix seems to come up with solutions to certain problems, and that's fine. We adapt and dance, and the dance continues. But like, there are consequences to becoming dualistic and thinking that like Plato was a Platonic thinker, and he was like, the flesh is shitty. Like, and there's this realm of, like, he was basically a spiritualist in the sense that he's like, there's an ideal forms place where everything comes from, and it's very New Age in the sense where it's like, oh, there's 12D and we're in 3D, and there's not total distruth to that, right? There's elements of truth, but like anything, you gotta kind of like weigh it and stuff. I should probably be reading this fucking chat room, I'm realizing. Anyway, so I'm just realizing it's like someone's salty. I'll finish on this and we can talk about whatever, because we've definitely milked the titty.
Oh, no, dude, like this. You're welcome to keep talking. Like, you're a stream of conscious thought right now. So
this is how Geminis roll. I mean, you get it. Like, when we, like, I think of us as when we, I mean, I've been told, like, I'm looking up and shit, and I don't think I'm channeling like a spirit, but it's like I'm on cruise control here in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like thinking in a certain way. It's parts of my limbic system are off, apparently. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. But this is all coming from experience, and I'm willing to like talk. I'm not trying to. At the end of the day, it's not about winning an argument. It's about having a conversation.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So, okay, just all that being said. But the point is, pagans and witches and all that, they've done a really good job of maintaining a worship is the issue, and that's why Christians say you're worshiping the earth and not God. They have kept a reverence for the creation in such a way that a lot of Christians over time lost. Like, there's a lot of Christians who are like, I'm not going to be environmentally green or recycle or do anything because fucking it's all burning anyway and we're going to heaven. It's like, that is inappropriate thinking. Like, there's consequences to that. But at the same time,
yeah.
There's consequences to thinking all there is dirt.
And we also can't like say all Christians are the same. It's
for sure.
Yeah. Like, Christianity is known for fracturing its numbers and disagreeing against each other. Not the true essence of Christianity, because I feel like what you and I are talking about is the true Christianity,
the true
versus what we were growing up to made to believe, like you have to read this book, you have to go to church. If you don't do just that, then you're going to hell, which is just that's a lie. That's not Christianity.
Well, I think the idea ultimately, and I'll just shut up after this, is like separation from God is a thing, but the prodigal son is really a great fucking story, and I talk about
I love it. I love it.
It's probably one of my favorites too. Yeah. The idea here being, if people aren't aware of it, God is represented as this father, if you want to put it that way, and he has two sons, and one of them is like party animal, wants to fucking do anything he wants. Just think like Uranus, right? Like almost, quite frankly, a Gemini who's ruled by Uranus. So he goes off and fucks around, does everything, lives his life, but these are the lessons he needs to learn. And he comes to the end of his rope and realizes, oh man, I need to kind of rein it in. Like total chaos is not okay. And he comes to some conclusion and reconciles with the father. The equal opposite of that paradigm is the older brother in this story, which is the dutiful, religious, Saturnian kind of Capricorn vibe, where it's like, I'm doing all the right things. It's like a Virgo Capricorn moon or something, you know what I mean? Right? Where it's just like, I'm doing all the right things.
Why does he get a party? What the hell?
Yeah, well, in a weird way, they're like, it's tricky because it's not like any metaphor does the picture justice fully ever. That's why metaphors are constant and varying.
Think about if people went to heaven and then it's like people who've been going to church every Sunday. It's like, what, God, how come you're going to let this person come to heaven? He's just been drinking alcohol and smoking weed all his life. And I've been going to church. Like, I could totally see some people being like that. Like,
well, most religious people are that way. They think if they just do the right things, they'll somehow earn God's favor. And the whole point is God loves all creation.
And is no respecter of persons.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, in a weird way. So it's like, look, you can go off and be this crazy, radical, liberalized person who's kind of tasting all the pies and putting your dick in God knows what. You could be doing crazy shit, and those are going to be the karmic lessons that you have either signed up for or God has. Those are your lessons, and the schools of life and karma that you're going to get through those are going to be radically true and real for those people. But at the same time, the schools of thought for hyper stoic, religious, kind of uptight people, it's almost more dangerous to have a hardened heart, because that's when you start fucking caging off the spirit and thinking you know better. And that's when God is like, look, you don't need, like, what? Like I don't think
God hates most than everything, pride.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's where that whole story comes in, where it's like pride is the beginning. Like humility is the beginning, humility and gratitude. And that's why Buddhists get it, and Hindus. There's just as much sectarianism in Hinduism and Buddhism and atheism and all sorts of, everybody's sick. For every person you see, for every two eyeballs you see, that is a worldview. Like no two people think the same, like at all. And I don't care if they think they do, they will not. But at the same time, we are all one in this dream. So it's this paradox of hyper articulated individualism that will never be, we're all snowflakes, but we're in a snow globe together.
Yeah. And
so it's just like,
when I say,
I can shut up about Christianity now.
and to close on that, when I say I'm a Christian, I understand Christ as a archetypal representation of aligning, surrendering your ego to align it with the Holy Spirit within, and to be Christ ruled, to make decisions from the heart, to actually, acknowledge that we're, not to say we're all connected, because we all have our individually, and we are all connected in a way, but I don't really believe it in the sense where I have to believe a man died on the cross, and if I don't believe he was God, then I won't go to heaven. I think that's a gross misinterpretation. I think that story of Jesus was symbolic to really teach us, just like he said, I'm doing all these miracles, but you guys are going to do better than me. We can harness Christ through our hearts, connected as a consciousness, and access heaven through the higher chakras. If we take our body as a temple, right? And when you live through Christ, you produce the fruits of the Spirit, and you walk and live a life of integrity. So you can embody that while not getting so caught up in, is it this, religion is like a rope. Like you're going up, but people are like, this is the right rope. This is the right rope, when God just wants you to climb up that rope. Right. So I get the sense that what you just kind of confirmed for me right now. Now I can see how this is a rabbit hole. Like
That's forever.
What Pluto, Scorpio, Pluto, Sag is to do is to kill God, kill the religion concept in the sense where we're not killing God, right? But
we're getting rid of the fat that is no longer of service to the actual spirit.
You confirmed to me that what, at least me personally, and what we're meant to do is to actually, like, we finally reached the understanding of this and we could let it go. Like, I'm really getting, like, all the religions, all the trains of thoughts, like, in order for something new to come in, we had to go through this age of Piscean, like,
1000%,
you know, doctrine. And now we can kind of like release this all, not be like, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm this. Like, first of all, you're you, right?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I think this spiritual story that we find, like, I found myself as a white middle class American, and like, there's, whether it's karma or I chose it or whatever, there's a lot of interpretations of how this works. That's the story that I mean, I'm not to not be bound by the story, to hold it loosely, but to respect the fact that these are the conditions in which I'm in. There's going to be consequences. The thing that hit my mind when you were saying this is like, look, for a long time, it's a bell curve thing, dude. So like the masses, and I think people who know don't need to like be told this. So it's like a little like you've aced the class, like you get it intuitively. You don't have to take this course past Spanish 2. You get it, you know, whatever. Like some people just get it and go through. But most people, it seems, are so hung up in certain proclivities of ego distortion and attachment that they have to have outside and external sources telling them and guiding them. And it's a functional necessity, it seems, but much in the same way that, like, there was a time when, like, straight up and down, like, at least in the West, it's pretty civil. Like, we can walk the streets and not fear, like, getting shot, or like Native Americans, like, it's pretty civil. I'm not saying there's not violence or gangs and all that stuff. People are people, so there's always going to be weirdness. But overall, like, you can walk around in America or Europe and feel, quote, safe. And that took a lot of effort and a lot of blood and sweat and tears to get that kind of shit there. Yeah. But we are the fruit of that labor. We're cultured and civilized or whatever. And that doesn't mean we're perfect or get it all by any means. But much in the same way, at some point, I think, so when people started, like when America was founded, which is ironic because this astrology, we're coming into a Pluto return, you know, it's like basically the same astrology now. I think Cap was in Libra, which is why we fucking rebel about a tea party. Our relationship's not correct. Fuck you. Like, right? But now it's Caps and Saturn. Or you know what I'm saying. Saturn is in Capricorn, and it was in Libra. That's what I meant. Saturn is in a Capricorn, so it's really about hitting the limit of these systems to the degree where it's like, we don't need a God or government in the way that it's been provided for so long, because we've upgraded so much and we've inherited so much upgraded culture that it's like we're all neo. I mean, I think the point. It's like Francis of Assisi was like, preach the gospel, preach the gospel, preach the gospel, and if you have to, say words. Like, that took a long time to get to. I mean, that took 1,000 years, 1,500 years, or whatever, for people to get to a point of like kind of that gnosis. But, and I'm rambling, but the point is, it's a paradox. So on the one hand, it's tragic, but it's like without tension and drama and stakes and not winners and losers, but like without drama, like there's no story, and we're in a fucking story. So it's like there's always going to be this kind of ebb and flow of like chaos and order and death and life and good and evil or whatever. And though how one is on the bell curve is where you appreciate, like, how you appreciate these things. So if you're in the middle, like a bell curve, you know what I'm talking about, with like 10% are like down here, 90% in the middle, 10, or rather 5, 95, right? So it's like, that's why they call it the elect or whatever. That's why mystics are so, they go off and do their thing by themselves. It's like, that's not normal. It's normal for them because they're ahead on the bell curve in their personal evolution. They don't need to, they're not getting the same lessons as other people. That doesn't mean they're better. That just means they're in a different place.
True.
So I think what's happening now is we're essentially, my hope, maybe I'm naive, my hope is this, Age of Aquarius, if you listen to the fucking song, it's like harmony and understanding. It's like, it took a long time to get to a place where we're not looking around and just thinking of everybody as like, oh, I want to fuck that chick, or oh, I want to take that guy's land, or I mean, for better or worse, like there was a time in human history where it's like, if you don't know the people around your fire, kill them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there was some dark stuff going on this planet for a long time. And
in some ways, it's kind of like that, but it's harder to be open with it. So I totally agree.
but and that's the dark side. I mean, when I say dark, it's like that's the broken kind of like mangled part of human being in history. But at the same time, if I mean, as a Christian, it's like God chose to redeem this. Like He loves it enough to be like, I'm going to set this straight, or what? It's like it's valuable. It has value. Like a lot of people tend to, like I said, be dualistic and be like, oh my God, if it has anything to do with human orifices or like cursing or drugs, it's like and it's like no, like weed is a plant is creation. Like your genitals are the power source of creation. Like there's better and worse ways to use this, and you're going to have your own karmic lessons, and God be with hopefully you're wise and try these things. That's I think the heart of where religion comes from is spirit. Like whatever Moses has a burning bush, or you got to think there's certain people having an epiphany and they're like, how do I translate this to other monkeys? Like I've seen, like when I saw Jesus, it's like how I'm not going to go start a cult, but it's like I've heard the gospel from the guy himself, it seems, or whatever. And I don't have to, it doesn't make me better or worse by any means. I don't think it, but that like it's been articulated in a way that I could understand it. And I think at the end of the day, it's all grace. Everything is grace, whether it's, I mean, if you want to be a literalist Christian, it's like the snake was allowed in the garden. Judas was allowed to be a disciple. Like grace abounds. Like it's all like it's a machine of mystery and dynamos and beauty, and it's so big that like I think that's when in Revelation it's like we'll sit down around and be like, holy, holy, holy. I think at some point we're all going to kind of wake up in the dream enough to be like, holy tits, y'all! Like this is really happening. Anyway. I think I've said quite a bit enough about that. I mean, I don't know what your time schedule is like. I could still talk for a while. Do you want to talk about other shit like astrology, tarot, all the real, like the good, juicy stuff?
No. I think this was, please don't apologize. This was solely necessary. And
I've got a Mars in Cancer. So
yeah,
this is where that's coming in. I'm like, oh, have I offended you?
no, not at all.
Let me pee really quick. Like 10-second break. Is that cool?
That's totally fine.
Word.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, yo. This is whenever we do peace talks with Gemini, it goes down. It goes down. We just killed a whole hour like it was nothing. Okay. I've actually realized like Gemini energy, Sagittarius energy, we speed up time. I've confirmed this. Like, I guess the stimulation of our energy makes time seem like it's barely passing, and it just, one reason could be because we just talk through it the whole time, and that's just our gift of gab. But it's still really awesome to see, especially in Jim's case, where you just see his sun and moon just kind of like seeing a thought stream, going with it, and then bringing it back around and then coming around. So definitely grateful. I'm going to once again, he's a Leo rising, by the way. So I'm going to once again reiterate, you are taking part of a ritual right now. We have 2 suns and a moon in Gemini. Is your Mercury in Gemini too, bro?
So what now?
Is your Mercury also in Gemini?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can pull up my chart.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I really actually, I mean, that was not what I was expecting to talk about. I kind of went on a tear there.
It was important. It was really important. I felt that in my soul that I had to be talked about. So I'm very grateful.
Just realize the grain of salt is like, I'm learning. I'm a student of life. So it's like, these are my impressions and they can change. These are it's like, these are some experiences, but I'm totally willing to engage in conversation about these things. You see what I'm saying? It's not like I'm like, oh, if you don't agree, fuck you. Although that can happen with a lot of Uranian energy. I don't think that typically.
And there's something you mentioned that was so profound. Just like in scripts like the Bible, where it says, you did mention that Gemini, just like Aquarius and Sagittarius, also access this energy. We also kind of are able to step into that realm. We just lack the maturity, let's say. Or I think that's the best way to say it, because we're not really as mature and it's not like we don't want to be, but it's just the way we are, right? So that kind of made me realize this is why Gemini is like God's favorite child. It's like God's favorite sign, because we're the
student of life, dude. God appreciates a student.
Life. Yes, yeah. Exactly. We approach the kingdom of the gates of heaven like a child. Like,
and guess who inherits the kingdom?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I like to think of us as like the Robin Williams or like Jim Carrey. You know, it's like we know how to have fun, but because okay, so and it depends on a lot of placements. Let's put it that way. Like there's some Geminis that annoy me, right, or whatever. Um, so it is real. Like I know we're annoying to a lot of people because for like clearly like we don't know when to shut up. Hi. Um, or you know all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to pull up my chart because it's like I don't know by heart, but I should. Yeah. Oh no, my Mercury's in Cancer, but it's in the 11th, so it's like yeah.
What degree?
8th.
8 degrees. Nice. That's right opposite my Uranus in Capricorn. That's it.
I mean, I'll just rip off my thing. Here's my chart, y'all. Sun in the 11th, Gemini, 26 degrees. Moon, 15 degrees in Gemini, 10th house. Mercury, 8 degrees, Cancer.
What degree is your moon again?
15.
Oh, nice. Okay.
In the 10th.
It's squaring Neptune right now. That's lit.
Oh,
That's
dude,
lit.
I've got some. My moon is naturally, I think, opposing Uranus, so it's like I'll never be stable emotionally. Like I'm always going to be like on my toes or whatever, you know. Venus is in Taurus, 10 degrees in the 9th house. Love that. It's like permanent lover. Huzzah. Mars is in Cancer. It's not a bad thing to have Mars in Cancer, 5 degrees in the 11th, thank God. But that is going to be why I tend to be like an art. Like I'm always like, am I offending you? Like I'm very conscious of other people's feelings. Like I'm not like just like I'm going to cut off your head. Here's my story. You know, it's like I'm very aware of others' energy, especially being a Gemini. You know, so it's like, am I communicating okay? Like, am I offending you? Jupiter in Aquarius, 16 degrees in the 6th house. So I think this has a little to do with why I'm trying to clean up mysticism in a way. It's like I see a big picture, but I see that it's our duty in a way, 6th house, to like to try to articulate these things in love. Which love is. I mean, there was a long time where I was like, I don't know what love is. My parents divorced. I've seen like love as such doesn't exist in a way. I was like, it's an abstraction. I think people just make this shit up. And then I've had some psychedelic experiences and meditations where I'm like, no, we're made by, we're forged in love. We are love ultimately, but we tend to have so many like distortions and shadow and all that jazz, which is good and necessary, it seems, for the development of consciousness and the whole fucking creation at large. Like this is all in a choose your own adventure. I mean, it's so many levels, dude. Life and reality. It's like it's all individual choose your own adventures, but there's multiple groups having scripts, you know, like if you want to put it that way, like cultures and like people groups and religions. And then but ultimately it's all still held together in a bigger story. It's just like stories within stories within stories. It's like whoa, it's really a privilege to be embarked on this. I mean, if we start thinking about it, it can be a burden sometimes being materially bound and like dying. You know, entropy is a bitch, right? Like aches and pains and heartbreak and all this kind of stuff. But in a weird way, it's like I don't remember who said it, so I can't quote it. You know, I'm all about quotes with Team Rabbit Hole. It's like to experience joy, you have to have like kind of pain kind of thing. So it's like if you like the deeper you go in the pains, like I've had a really hard life in some emotional ways, like super hard. I'm surprised I haven't killed myself a few times, quite frankly. Like it's just like, how have I gotten through this? But because of those deep, deep valleys, my peaks are fucking ratchet. It's like and I wouldn't want my story on anybody else since my story. So I'm not trying to like say we all should experience this, but I'm happy and privileged in a way. Like I'm thankful. Like and coming to that kind of grateful moment, even if I'm grateful for illusions and Maya and I'm caught up in my ego, it's like whatever. Like I've got a cool script and it's pretty open fucking source and it's pretty dope. Anyway, I don't ironically Leo rising, so I don't love talking about myself, but I can. Saturn. Yeah, wait, what's your rising?
Taurus.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, even to the point, this is weird. I mean, we can talk about this in a second, kind of how you turned on astrology and stuff. But when I was doing a bunch of acid in like 2013 after a breakup, is when I turned on to like, it's like my mystic spidey senses turned on or whatever, where I was like, oh, I see a Leo, like the physical attributes of a Leo. I see the Scorpio. I see the Taurus. It's not that you're super chesty, but it's like even the fact that you have a V-cut shirt and like, it's like, oh yeah, Taurus rising, of course. Like it just makes sense. if that makes any sense to you. So my Saturn is in Scorpio in the 4th. That sucks a little. I'll be honest. I think that has a little to do. I've been neglectful of myself in a lot of ways for a long time. I'm kind of over that now, but like just stupid Saturn in 4th house shit, where it's just like, oh, like bathing regularly for a long time wasn't even a thing for me. I was just like, fuck it, why? I don't care. It was like asceticism gone wrong. It was just like, I don't care about myself. I've recovered from that kind of situation now. But Uranus is in Sag in the 4th. That's cool. I mean, I think it just adds a fiery element to kind of being at home with everybody. So it's like we're all in this together. I mean, that's the whole point of team. I'm so 11th house, dude. I mean, there's no. I'll finish talking about this. Neptune is in Capricorn in the 5th, and Pluto's in Scorpio in the 3rd. So, I mean, that has a lot to do with where I'm at energetically, just because it's like, look, I'm going to express ideas and communicate things that are going to be about dramatic transmutation.
Yeah.
Basically. True North Node's in Taurus, Midheaven's in Taurus, and like I said, Rising is Leo. So, I'll shut up about that. Do you want to? I mean, what do you want to talk about? I can ramble clearly, but I want you to talk too, because I've always thought you're cool. Like I hope we kick
I
it.
want you to talk too.
Yeah, dude. Like I feel like this is one way, and I feel bad about that.
No,
I
bro,
remember
this is
one
your episode. That's totally fine.
word.
Like I would interrupt you if it got too serious. But
You have total permission to be a shut the fuck up. You
Yeah,
already knew you had that, but like you have my permission.
we want to hear. I want to hear what you gotta say. So,
Word.
like, please don't feel like you're saying too much. If you are, I'll just be like, hey, let's go here. But I am interested in what inspired the Team Rabbit Hole concept, and because it's so good, it's so awesome.
All right, so if people don't know, and it's whatever, because it's kind of like you do $1 Billion Vibe Tribe as a hashtag, right? Shout out to that. Like I've been using that a little, but it's weird because I'm like, I don't believe in intellectual property in a way. Like I think everything's everything. So it's like,
no, you use it all you want. Like
no. It's hard. This is kind of goes in play with the Team Rabbit Hole stuff. So it was not a thing at first, and it's still not a thing. It's not a service.
Yeah,
I might be trying to develop into something a little more. Actually, Caroline Hogue, who has actually also gotten readings from you, or reading. She's a classmate of mine, and we've been talking. We might be doing just some. I don't even know. It's a tricky thing because I think there's a lot of potential for entertainment and information and communication, but at the same time, I look around. I'm like, how many fucking people have podcasts? It's like a super saturated market in a way. So I'm like, I would hope to think that the quality rises to the top. So if I did something, maybe it would work. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to just do it because it's popular. If that makes sense. Because I don't think I would want to do a podcast, but I want to kind of do what you're doing with Peace Talks and stuff. It's like, I just want to shoot the shit with people that I think are cool, pick their brains and talk about their charts and like their history. It doesn't hurt to give a kind of a tour of the specimens on Earth. You know what I mean? It's like, look what we got here. What color crayon are you? All right. So that's kind of the energy I'm coming from. So Team Rabbit Hole is I'm primarily doing it on, okay, so there's a lot of things to it. So I have a Facebook, clearly, at Jim Kincaid, right? And on that is where I tend to post what I really think the most in terms of like okay, let me pull back a little. Around before 2012, probably 2010 even, I was looking at posts like from that long ago. At some point, okay, I'm an ENFP, so that's like the inspirer in Myers-Briggs. And my senior quote in high school. Yeah, dude. Okay, we're NFP for life. This is why. Okay, there's a lot of levels. My brother's an INFP, I think, too.
I'm an INFP.
And he's a Gemini. So
I feel like for Gemini, like we're not just one. Like we go from one to other. So I'm like INFP or INFT or INTP INFP. I go from back.
I'm like an E by 1%. So like I'm really bubbly and talkative right now, but like. It depends. Like I can be like I'll have months where I'm just reading and being by myself and stuff. That's why the internet's so cool. It's like I can engage heavily, but it's not necessarily like schmoozing literally all the time. So it's like I get my personal space, but whatever. So my senior quote in high school was a Wynton Marsalis quote, who's a trumpeter, and basically it was experiencing great things makes us want to do great things ourselves or something like that. And that's really kind of the modus operandi from which I'm working. It's like I want to experience as much awesome beauty as I can and kind of try to transmute it through my own personal engine of being or whatever, my alchemical fucking reality, and project stuff that is going to inspire others for the sake of conversation, for the sake of my illumination, others. You know, it's like we're all tied together. So it's like if I get inspired and I can express it well, like I would hope that like that joy gets translated to others. That's the only reason why I do any of this shit, right? So it's kind of like I would hope like Disney, for example, like really liked kid stories, so he wanted to do it. It wasn't just like let's make a bunch of money, or you know what I mean? Like I hope he was inspiring people. There's probably a lot of weird history there,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
yeah, there like there's a lot of weird history with everything. Anyway, so to give you some context, that was my senior quote. So I've kind of been a late bloomer in I mean, this is Mars cancer shit, but it's like right around that time I had that Jesus out of body experience and stuff. Like I said, that was me waking up, and I was just like, I mean, I was doing weird shit, like ritualistic kind of like athletics or whatever you want to call that, and tapping into higher dimensionality or whatever that it was, and to the point where I was just like, no, I'm gonna be a pothead again, like I was a stoner, and I just kind of tuned it out and got into alcohol, like got into fucking around, which isn't bad, like, but I did the prodigal son shit, right? Where I was like, okay, cool, I'm out. I'm going to go. I lived in Hawaii 2 years. I've lived in Switzerland for basically a year and a half. I'm about to go to Ecuador and pet sit for 6 months. Like for no, yeah, it'll be dope. And you can come through, anybody, if they want. Basically, I'm just going to be watching pets and probably working on a podcast and playing guitar. So anyway, Team Rabbit Hole. So the point back in 2010, let's say, I started making posts of like, it's like, why are people just posting pictures of food on Twitter and Facebook and shit? Like, this is kind of self-indulgent, basic shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's fine, but it's like, this isn't like, it's kind of like chat roulette. Like the first time I ever got on there, I was like, holy shit, I can talk to anybody in the world. And I get on, and it's like Middle Eastern dudes jerking off. I'm like, this is not being utilized properly.
Like, so really, I thought that was an exaggeration. Like,
oh no, that shit's real.
Oh my.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to get on acid and go on there and just dance and have a little party and kind of spread joy. And like sometimes as people like drunk, you know, Europeans like just channel surfing and like, so it'd be chill people. But then it'd be like people like dudes jerking off. And I'm just like, well, I can't unsee that. So,
you know, like,
yeah,
that's the only reason why I didn't really do it anymore.
Oh, you shouldn't. I've done it. Yeah, I've done it a little, and at some point I was like, this is roulette in the worst sense, and I'm just getting fucking things I can't see, you know, unsee that. So anyway, so basically, yeah, totally traumatizing. But whatever, at some point I need to like adult up. It's just like, whatever, that's a monkey touching himself, whatever. So, but it's not enjoyable for me, so I'm just like, fuck that. So there was this time in this crux, and this is like 2010. I mean, this is right when shit was hitting energetically, 2011. For sure, I was doing this by 2012 and 2013 because I went through a crazy breakup in 2012. Moved to Colorado. I mean, I was doing all this weird stuff. But between 2010 and 2012, I was in Hawaii, developing alcoholism. I lost my virginity there on a street called Pau Street to a stripper. Basically, Pau means death in Hawaiian. And my brother's always making fun of me. He's like, "You killed your V card on Death Street." And I'm like,
I wish you knew the zodiac sign of her.
Oh, probably a Virgo or a Cancer, just by remembering her, because she was like this curvy, like I don't know.
Yeah.
But I saw her around town like later, and I was like, oh my god, and she was like, hee hee, like kind of winking at me. But anyway, Team Rabbit Hole. So there's this zeitgeist happening, right, where basically people were becoming very digitally active. Lots of information was popping. Memes were becoming a real thing. YouTube was becoming like people like it wasn't just a pastime with like fucking Minesweeper and like, you know, AOL, like the internet had become a verifiable force of change. Like the Uranian element in me was like, this is where the action is, kind of. Yeah. And it's a playground and it's an inter-exchange, but like I'm seeing people posting stupid shit, basically. And I don't think I'm posting the most profound shit, but it's like, how can I both it came to a point where basically it was like starting to make posts of quotes correlating with pictures that I found inspiring and resonant to the quote. So kind of like almost a creative montage of a sticky note, kind of, where I'm like, look, this is for me to remember, and I'm going to get vibes off this. Other people hopefully dig it. If they like it, cool. If they don't, I don't really care. I think it's like little art installations of inspiration, kind of.
Yeah.
But digital. And I started doing this enough and getting enough traction. And at one point, I was doing a lot of acid. I was eating like acid once a week. I've done that even this past year. I was eating acid once a week for a while. So what?
Microdosing, right?
Well, no. When I was in 2013, I was eating a hit a week, which is kind of gnarly in retrospect. So I'd be like an afterglow. This is why I was seeing astrological signs. This is I mean, I was opening up to a lot of shit. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but for me, that's what I needed because I got over depression in a lot of ways. I got over alcoholism. My ex-girlfriend. I was
I
tuning
feel
into the
like that
zeitgeist.
calls you too. Like I used to think psychedelic binges or trips were just kind of like it's totally co-creative. Like it's not. I feel like it calls you in to do that, and you do it once or
It
twice.
depends on your intentions a lot, right? So I would be doing chakra cleansing or making or getting in. It depends. I mean, there's a lot of things. You don't want to always do this, but like sometimes I would just be on the internet listening to fucking Daft Punk albums on acid, just talking to people on Facebook, and
Wow.
like getting in all these crazy conversations about Manly P. Hall and like Terrence McKenna, and just like engaging with as much interesting intellection as I could with an open consciousness, basically. Um, this started happening enough where I started realizing that I was going down a shit ton of rabbit holes. Like I was like, oh my God, like if Terrence McKenna's right, then this isn't right. I was like, it started becoming very apparent that there's just there's a lot of rabbit holes, which doesn't mean it's bad, but
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot of trips and a lot of things to go down, and you can get stuck in certain loops of thought. And if if I look around and think all that there is materially reductionistic, that's going to have consequences. So it's
True.
like, of course, you know, you know, Dawkins and all these people are like stuck in that reality tunnel. It's like, oh yeah, hopefully they do some psychedelics and blow that open. But anyway, I got to a point where I jokingly kind of, as a side mental, like it was just kind of a fart in the wind kind of thing. I was just like started using hashtags because I was like, oh, hashtags are funny. So if you look at my posts, I mean, I can't wait till I die and like AI is looking over my life or whatever at my funeral. It's like it's funny to see how all this worked and developed. But like early posts I was doing on my Facebook have crazy, like it's like singularity or bust, team rabbit hole, like all sorts of weird hashtags that I was like, oh, hashtags are an art form too, so I'll try to fuck around with that. And after a while, people started resonating with the team rabbit hole thing to the degree that they were like, yo, why don't you make a page about that? And this is the point when I kind of had a schism in my thinking. And I was like, well, I like posting really inspirational, kind of thought provoking things, but I have a trickster side too, for sure. And basically, so I was at that point, I was posting a lot of psychedelic memes and just like really weird memes, and then like beautiful pictures with quotes, but or whatever, like inspiring things. And it was like this isn't to a cogent crowd, so I'll go ahead and make the Team Rabbit Hole Facebook page and throw all my drug memes on there, like the woke drug memes where it's like McKenna as a mushroom saying something crazy or whatever, things that aren't like beautiful to look at but are thought provoking.
Yeah.
And I kind of just threw them in that pile, and basically that's why that exists. It's kind of just like the storage locker of like crazy memes I find that I think are true. But I'm at a point personally at this point, like, I mean, I love psychedelics. I think people should all do them in their lifetime given certain circumstances, like you're not insane already, all this kind of stuff. Although they cure mental illness in a way, like they cure, like mushrooms recently have cured my depression largely. um all this being said, yeah, dude, like it's all about intention. If you're just like eating a bunch of drugs and like going to a fish show or something, it's like, okay, well, that's really not. You can do that, but that's on the spectrum of wise or unwise. That's a little less wise.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there like listening to fucking chakra chants, like I'll do this a lot. Listen to chakra chanting meditations and clearing my chakras, focusing on them, checking out stuff. I'm not having visions quite the same way a Sag and Aquarius would or
Right.
whatever. So I'm
Right.
having to prime this shit. You know what I mean? I'm having to, like, in a weird way, as Gemini, linear logical mental realm that like to subvert that is euphoric in a way. It can be, you know what I mean? Like it's for me, psychedelics is like are like a it's enough of a stopgap or whatever for how I presume things to be for me to realize there's way more to the picture than meets the eye. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I can't assume I know everything. I can't be certain of anything. I've got to leave a little room for uncertainty and all this shit, like be a little humble. So there's benefits to psychedelics. Anyway, so that's kind of the story of Team Rabbit Hole, where it started off as kind of a tongue-in-cheek hashtag. So if you type in Team Rabbit Hole on Facebook, and I have an Instagram now. I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like, this isn't a thing, but I've had enough free time. I was growing weed for a few years, and I just had a lot of spare time. And it's just like, well, I can be positive change this way. Like I'm not going to go out and talk, it's like, how can I be the most positive and effectual as a social Gemini in 11th house, right? It's like, how can I do this? And it's like, this is just how that's manifested. I'm at a point kind of where And I think I'm maturing a little with the psychedelics, and I'm not like, it's not that I don't resonate with the drug memes, but it's like I kind of like laugh, and I'm like I mean, I'm not one to push limits. Like I'm not eating 10 strips of acid, I'm microdosing more, you know what I mean? Or like it's not like 20 gram, 15 grams of mushrooms, it's like a gram. So there's hippie types that like go balls to the walls, and I can appreciate that to a point, but it's like that's overplaying the tools a little. Careful with that, ex Eugene kind of thing. Pink Floyd reference there, but yeah, that's the long-winded version of like how that came to be. And basically, it was I started tagging people. I'm not psychic, but I'm close, is how I've always put it. So it's like I start tagging people if I think they'll either resonate or get a kick out of it or whatever. And that's the only reason I started tagging people. And that inherently networks people. So it would, and if you're tired and you got to bounce, let me know. I see the yawn.
No, I just yawn.
Well, it means we need more oxygen on the one hand, but sometimes it could mean you're fucking bored. So either way,
I sometimes forget to breathe like a dumbass. So that's probably why, because I'll just get caught up on it. And
it's all about breath.
Yeah. I haven't really been, that's the one thing I'm supposed to really practice and get into, but
You're lazy.
Breathe down to basically, yeah. I tell people dude. Diaphragm, but then I forget to do that on a daily basis. It is.
Yeah. So all that being said, T-Rabbit is cool, and that's kind of what I do, but that's really just like a hobby horse, and it may or may not be something I try to ride further. I'm not sure. I'm a guitarist. My brother's a drummer, so I really rather be doing music as a hobby that makes money. And at this point, I don't think I'm qualified. I don't know what qualifications are, because when I give readings to astrology, it's like I said, I just read what I can grok, and it kind of, I'm like, hey, this is what this means. This is what this is like. Does this resonate? And people dig it enough that I think I could probably make some pocket change with it. But I'm not in a place where I feel qualified to be like $100 for a chart. Like that just makes no sense to me. For me, where I'm just like, oh God, like I'd rather go do a gig and shred or whatever and get paid for gigs. But let's talk about astrology and all this stuff, like with you, because I want to bring you into the conversation more. I got turned on to you, like I said, right when you were coming up. When Leo King was doing his like whatever tours he was doing 2 or 3 years ago, I think you said you went to one. One in Vegas probably. It's just funny to see how all these tendrils of consciousness and evolution of personage, individual personalities, growing and blossoming, and in the cross pollination of all this. Because I mean, for better or worse, and this, I don't think this is like psychologically ill, so I'm not totally worried, but it's like I feel a camaraderie with people through the internet that I don't know. Like, I don't know you for shit, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, we're kindred spirits, bro. Like, we're fam, like same thing with Diane. Like, I mean, there's so many people like this, and I don't know where it goes from here, but I'm pretty sure the astrology the next couple of years is like, we're going to start taking this from like our hobbies in the spare room. And this might start, I would hope, and I don't know how this will all work with the zeitgeist, but it's like, I think the reason Leo King's getting on fucking, it's not the reason, but it's like a reason he can go on mainstream network television and give readings now, which would never have happened, I don't think, like 5 years ago.
I know.
Is people are ready for the fresh, the spirit is coming in new ways, and these are
symbolic. Don't you feel like it's symbolic that he's the one leading the charge, the sun ruled Leo?
It is funny.
Yeah.
Because I don't know enough about him. You've met him, you're chums with him or whatever. I mean, I think you're employed by him technically through Future Life. But in a way, so I had never seen his reality stuff, and he put that on Instagram the other day, and I was just like laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm childlike as fuck, and when I see him, it's like it's I don't know what degree. I think it's like 0 or 1 degree Leo. It's like he's the child, but not in a detrimental way or a bad way. But it's like he's got this total energy of like childlike enthusiasm.
Yeah,
and I think that's what people are drawn to, because I mean, when he's doing his readings and stuff, he'll be like, this isn't for your grandma or whatever. And it's like the astrologers, there's so many good astrologers that are out there that are going to be more tempered and a little more digestible and kind of tried and true methodologies and stuff. But we're at a point where I think strong personalities with real convictions, like authentic people, are coming to the forefront. And I think that's what people are craving. We're coming to a point in human history where it's like people want to feel connected authentically with each other, with themselves, with spirit, with their purpose. That's why astrology is coming back. Tarot. I mean, I don't know how you look at tarot because there's a lot. I say tarot. I should probably say tarot.
A
For
lot.
what? Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, okay. So obviously, astrology and tarot are super, super deep linked, and to the degree where it's like they read off each other. Astrology is kind of like the higher revelation of the cosmos as such, and as above, so below in our
Tarot is
internal
based
cosmos.
off of astrology. It's amazing.
It's gnarly. But tarot is like a recent development, essentially. I mean, it could have come from Egypt in a way, but this documentary I watched is kind of like medieval Europeans kind of made playing cards and were fucking around, and it kind of developed into an archetypal thing. It's funny how, the Buddhist saying, I think it's a Zen Buddhist, like all the universe in a grain of rice. It's like anything can almost become a tool for expounding consciousness and
Anything.
seeing.
Tea
Right.
leaves,
Each
coconuts, like
Well, not to say everything is everything, because it's not. Because the I Ching, for example, like 64 hexagrams and 64 codons in our DNA, like there's certain algorithms of reality where it's like, whoa, these programs are jamming real hard. Tarot seems to be like, for a long time, I was like, to kind of distance myself, because I wasn't into channeling until you. Like, you're really one of the only people I watch that channels, and it's because your eyes aren't rolling back, and you know what I mean? Like, you're not freaking me out. Like, in a way, I'm like, all right, this is manageable. But with tarot, it's like I've always kind of looked at it and tell me where you think I'm wrong, and let's talk about tarot for a second. Um, if humans are we're in a story, like everything is story. So what happens when we start writing down stories in a framework, i.e., 78 cards, but really just the major arcana is like the main story. It's like taking a comic book, writing a comic book, and then shredding up the pages and then shuffling them. I mean, that's how I've always kind of looked at it. It's like, and we're projecting a Jungian kind of projection of self into a story, and that's why it resonates back. I don't know how you feel in terms of like, it's when I think. Go ahead.
I was gonna say in terms of the whole. Well, actually, please finish your thought, because I think that's.
Well, like sometimes the issue with people with this stuff is like, you're trying to tell the future, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to read the present and the present people involved.
Yes.
And they're going to bring their story and their subconscious to things. And because we're in a story, if you take, it's like if you do a reading, it's like, this will be how it is if things don't really change much. I mean, that's kind of why we're doing these things.
This is why we have to do this. For example, as a real business owner, as somebody who's self-employed, working to I'm about to get an LLC real soon. So
fuck yeah.
I've had Shopify and recently Stripe cancel, like they will not let me process through them because they consider what I do risky business, fortune telling, and it really pissed me off because like I love what I do because I have no refunds. Like any refunds I have, it's never because I've scammed somebody. It's never because that no one enjoyed the reading. So looking at it from that standpoint, like I can understand if they were getting complaints, if they were seeing my account and they were seeing that people were not enjoying.
You're being like a snake oil salesman type thing. It might be an issue.
Exactly. But
what happens is people are like, it's entertainment at most. I mean, I was looking at some of the small print of Future Life, I think at one point. It's like, this is for entertainment purposes, blah, blah. We're coming out of modernity, dude, where a bunch of patriarchal, uptight, like A plus B equals C and don't tell me otherwise, like limited view people are in the power position right now. Yeah. So they're the ones calling the shots, but that's changing. I mean, the more this kind of stuff happens and is broadcast, the more people are, by your fruit you'll be known, essentially, right? So it's like, if we're like, I've told you before, you like going to your rituals and stuff is college and church for me somewhat. You know what I mean? Like I'm learning and I'm engaging. It's crazy.
And we have to put entertainment purposes for readings because what the narrative that's not being told is that the government and certain people in society are cracking down on people like us. They don't want us to do this. If we do it like it's supposed to be, where we're giving consultations, they're going to say, okay, you actually need to have some type of certification, which is bullshit. You have to have, they put up a rule just to get and undermine our way. Okay, it's for entertainment purposes or whatever. But you have certain vendors that will block us and say it's risky business, which it's really frustrating because if you research the gypsies, if you research people who have,
which is short for Egyptian, for the record, I hope you knew this.
I actually didn't know that. Actually,
Yeah,
no.
it's like I mean, it's like these are wandering people from mystical lands, like that went to Europe and were shunned because of ethnic uh, unwelcomeness. Like the things, it's so sad. It's the saddest story in human history, but also the most beautiful because it's the one we got right now. Um, how we've how much ignorance and fear, like we were talking about earlier, has ruled so many people, and it does. We're getting out of that. I think that's what the age of Aquarius kind of is, where we're coming into. I really
Well,
think it's.
it's our generation that's going to be able to put this in school systems, that's going to be able to legitimate, because that's what we need right now. We need
Mm-hmm.
somebody or something to legitimize what we're doing so that it's not risky business. Because it, unfortunately, because like I was saying, like there's a whole notion with people who use cards, with people who get into this stuff, the way the mainstream sees it, the way they try and package it, was that this is just stuff people use to deceive others. The reading of cards used by gypsies, they were never ever. It was never seen as something that was meant to be taken factually. So
Or
we
like
are
legitimate business, yeah.
exact. So we already
Have you
have
seen Cloud Atlas?
no.
I tend to reference culture quite a bit because I find it like a super mirror for our spirit. So like I'm a film buff. I like culture. Like I'm a culture junkie. Terrence McKenna probably wouldn't appreciate that because culture's quite not our friend. But and oh damn it, see if you haven't seen it. It's a dope movie. It's on Netflix. You should scope it. It's 3 hours. It's pretty intense, but it's like a postmodern. It's by the guys who made The Matrix, starting there. So it's pretty well done. And it's basically 7 stories through time, showing kind of karmic development of individuals. So in at the beginning, a guy who's like just totally lower chakra for himself, fucking people over, by the end is not that guy, and vice versa with all these characters. And people interchange between race, sex, class, all like it's really a pretty psychedelic. Most people didn't like it. It wasn't very successful because it's like it's woke
It
in a
was ahead
way,
of its time.
huh?
It was ahead of it
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
based on the
Um,
description. I don't think people.
So you should scope it, but if you don't, I'll just kind of say what it's about for people who have seen it. It's like old Georgie in that is this whispering, nagging fear. It's not totally incorrect, but it's self-preservation ego shit where it's like, oh, I should go help that person, and then it's like, no, don't do that. You'll die, and it's like, okay, I won't do that. And it's like, no, you might die, but you should probably live in love and accept death as a, you know what I mean? Like, what's happened is we live in a culture that is like I said a minute ago, we a lot of people got killed off who were telling truth for doing. I mean, I'm not saying witches were all accurate or whatever, but it's like to go around and kill people that disagree with you is gnarly. I mean, that's like program delete. It's like deleting apps. It's like you can't even play that program, and it's taken so long. That's why the whole mystery schools turned into Freemasonry. I mean, there's reasons for all this kind of crazy shit, but we're at a point where the information age through this whole fucking Aquarius is technology, internet, astrology. You get all this. It's like this rebellious kind of chaotic moment where I think what we're doing is really tapping into the electrical impulse of where the universe wants us to be going, based off of the shadow work has been dominant for a long. I'm not saying this right. The forces that have been in play largely, not to say it's all this way. It's nothing's all one way or the other, but most things have been done out of fear, self-preservation, entitlement, laziness, right? For forever, for generations. It's like, oh, most people don't leave their towns because why would I want to go do that? Well, that's very ignorant, right? It's like the world is an oyster. It's beautiful. Go check it out. We're coming to a place where, because of technology, we can see and peer into each other's lives in such a new way, and radical way, that we start realizing the similarities and the radical dissimilarities between cultures. And now we're comparing and contrasting and leveling up. It's like a feedback loop. Like ever since the internet came on, culture has been like in such a new and radical way that we're having more potentially. This is why I think. I mean, I'm not expecting total. We could talk about your predictions with like Guild Wars and all this stuff, but it's like we're getting to a place where it's like lines are being drawn, and energetic. I mean, what happens in Hollywood is where our psyche is. So when they do things like Heroes, or they do things like X-Men, or they do, all these kinds of things, that's where our subconscious is. And we are seeing it being expressed on the silver screen, and then we're feedback looping into this process of archetypal individuation and the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell style, and everybody's kind of resonates with different things. Like I don't really resonate with certain tarot cards as much as others. Like as a Gemini, we're the lovers. You know what I mean? Like that's all day. But
and
I'm
that's
not so much death.
true. Well, I could see Gemini as a lovers, like that stimulation, that makes sense. But there's something I wanted to
Sexuality.
answer before you were saying that, and that's like when it comes to stuff like tarot, we're at a place now where that whole system is going to have to be revolutionized. Like we might have to have 88 cards, might have to, because it made me realize that whole system is based off of how they archetypalize the world back in the day. So we're actually kind of, it's still accurate now, but there's more archetypes that
Yeah. If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing. So if the only tools you have are fucking 22 major arcana, like there's more to it than that, but it's both and. So it's like it's both a beautiful expression of heavily divine things that I think really does resonate at levels we'll never fully comprehend. But at the same time, there's limitations.
A lot of that was heavily influenced by the Christian age as well.
Totes.
So you have and see that's why I realized through this conversation you reconfirm that a whole lot of our rhetoric just we kind of let stuff go a lot, especially with a lot of new age spirituality. You have people bringing in like religious things like angels, like coming into like angels once again, or the light versus the dark, which was necessary, but I feel like that's actually holding us back from really grasping what we're stepping into, because you're now caught up in this good versus evil fear. And of course you'll have people who will say it's transcending that duality, but just some thoughts to get out the way. I think we're on the brink of stepping into this rabbit hole, and that's going to require, and that's what's holding people back, because in order for people to evolve spiritually, they have to let go of everything they felt they knew. Even me, like everything I think I know about astrology, Christianity, like I have to completely like reset the button in order to understand spirituality as it pertains to now. I think a lot of people,
or at least be willing to,
or at least
I mean,
willing to, yeah,
because we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. At the end of the day, we're linguistic, symbolic creatures. I mean, this is how we operate, and this is how our nervous systems have developed over time. So we're going to have, there's going to be necessarily certain gravities of thought. It's not because of Zoroastrianism or Christianity or anything like that we have dark light side or good evil or whatever. It seems we've witnessed polarity enough evident in reality that we get a Shiva Shakti feel and think everything's, and the way that cultures are in certain times articulate through language and story the way that they see that. So the way Norse mythology is very different than Japanese mythology, but at the end of the day, they're all articulating about the same ineffable things, which are transcendent. But those things are developing. Okay, so here's a question: do you think like Aquarius is something that's like this gets into platonic forms and stuff? Do you think these things are beyond and bleeding through reality, or are they developing with reality as it goes?
Great question. So, and this brings me back to, what we're doing seen as risky business. Everyone who sees the reading of tarot cards as a fortune telling practice. Number one, people who call themselves fortune tellers are frauds. Like they're completely, there's a way you can do it for fun, right? But people who actually, from my experience, especially when I used to be a reader at Keen, and I went through the whole just buying psychic readings, I can tell people who would cold read me, people who would just tell me what I want to hear, versus people who would actually like go into it. So anyone who kind of like says that has no experience reading cards. So you're having people who don't understand the craft regulating it. That needs to change. And then also, as far as like seeing the energies, once I realized that like what makes Aquarius is not the constellation. The constellation was created based on the zodiac. What makes Aquarius, first of all, the 30-degree spaces that we have, the 12-30-degree spaces based on the transit of the sun, the ecliptic, the celestial equator. You asked such a great question, because what makes Aquarius is this universe. It's everything that constitutes what we know. So I wouldn't see it as something that bleeds in as much as something that represents the totality of space, which is why you know, it's the second to last zodiac sign. It's lasted the test of time. We're stepping into this age where we're going to really explore space and really understand it. But this is that whole theme of collectivity too. What I really understood with the whole thing of Christianity, which now makes sense. You've had all these groups of people archetypalize these energies. Back when we had technology, okay, well, there's rain falling down. This is a rain god. There's the stars we see. We're going to say this is this. And you've had different stories that are close to the same, and you have Christianity come around and be like, okay, we're going to take most of these stories, we're going to Christianize them, and then we're going to say our God is the only God. So you stop worshiping all these other lesser gods, which I've basically come to see as different cultures that syncretize the same forces with their own name. So this is where, like, with this Aquarian energy, it's like, okay, all of that is under the umbrella of knowledge. We don't need to divide or separate based on that. This is a greater intellect that will come into through connecting with other people, because the only reason why you have these subjective understandings is because it's your own filtered perception. We need to
Well, here's where it gets tricky. So we wouldn't even have internet if there was no scientific age. If there wouldn't be scientific age, particularly if there wasn't a Christian movement, because basically Christians were like, there's a knowable reality that can be measured by a knowable God, so therefore we can go measure this shit. That doesn't mean other people weren't doing it, because I think Egyptians were doing it, Greeks were doing it, but they were doing it differently. So it gets to this point where it's like it's everything's a paradox, and people don't like that, and it's hard to sit in tension of that. It's not either or, it's both and.
I would say it's only a paradox based on our perception, because do gods consider themselves gods, or is that just what we call them? You know what I mean? Like that whole theme too, and that's what's making me realize, damn, and that's a paradox too. It's making me realize, like, damn, like we've asked these questions, we've kind of given ourselves these answers, and it's like we don't have to scrap it or go through the drawing board, because a lot of this is inspired, a lot of this is whatever. But now I see why it makes sense why Pisces, the last zodiac sign, is opposite Virgo. It's formless. It's not really anything. It's not concrete.
Yeah.
You will never, Pisces is the reason why you will never ever get a concrete answer to a question like, what is God? What is spirituality? It's just
illusion and delusion, potentially, at worst. So Virgo, okay, and this is the beauty. This is why I'm not totally ditching the zodiac, but I know enough tarot readers and people that are kind of ditching cards and trying to just channel now. So we are shifting into a very different, potentially, people, if they want to. I mean, it's kind of like the tools will always be available, but like you don't have to use certain tools the same way. So it's like, bicycles are dope, but it's like we have fucking Kawasaki's now, or you know what I mean? It's like it's still a bike, but it's like you can go higher and faster, farther. But that doesn't mean faster, better, farther is better. You're gonna not lose the weight and use your body the same way on a Kawasaki or whatever, a Ducati. The funny part about the zodiac, I think, is it resonates as true to me. This is when I'm like, step back and I'm like, holy shit, this shit's real beyond real. And maybe it's not forever true, but it's true enough for this epoch and this eon and like whatever, humans for the past 10,000 years or something, where you start seeing the cultural reality of history mirroring the zodiacal process of individuation. So it's like at first it's not at first at one point particularly, but like at one point there was more of a warring Aryan kind of like, or Aries, I don't think Aryan might be the right word, but a martial kind of like, we're going to go kill and take over and we're going to do this. What we're getting to, like, for us to have a Library of Alexandria, which burned down and was crazy, or back in the day, which was basically like the internet of their day. Or for us to have internet and stuff like now. I mean, there's a beauty and a simplicity to some like, third, like fourth world, like non-contacted people who are just like have their own stories and don't know anything about the world around them. There's beauty to that, but there's also this is the both and thing, right? It's both beautiful and limiting, or ugly if you want to put it that way. So there's beauty to where we are. What you triggered in my mind was when you said the Virgo stuff and the Pisces axis. We're having to go through whatever is influencing that spirit. I mean, you're breaking it down into mechanic. Or
let me interrupt real quick.
Yeah, do it.
I said that there's no concrete answer in a question that was wrong. I didn't mean it like that. So I just want to kind of clarify that.
Okay, you're cool. And like I said, this is all just a conversive game. At the end
Yeah,
of the day, it's like it's whatever.
yeah,
But to get to Pisces, you had to experience Virgo. Miles
yeah,
Davis said
yeah.
to like people are like, how do you jam so well? Like to Miles Davis, and the idea was like he's like, I learned all the theory and now I'm forgetting it. It's like
Oh,
I can play outside the form so much more now, but I had to learn the form. To say there's no form, I mean, see, so it's a paradox. It's like you got to learn and do the ropes and figure out what the archetypes are and the resonances are, so you can articulate in reality more effectively. But at the end of the day, don't let it be a straitjacket. Like don't be so bound to tradition and roles and
I
certain
forgot
things that you aren't willing.
I forgot
Huh?
you have to know all the rules in order to break them.
Yeah. I mean, probably Bruce Lee or Miles Davis or someone cool. Like everybody is. I mean, this is where it's beautiful. Where it's like when people say truth, I think all truth is God's truth, right? So it's like when people say really true shit, it's like that is spirit coming through so hard. And though
Also,
it might be bound to certain cultures, like I mean, clearly to say like, oh, it's better to use a catapult than use your invading forces is a truth of militarism in the like medieval ages. It's not necessarily a universal truth or whatever. So it's like there's different types of truth. This is why like epistemology is like how do we know what we know, and then I forget what it is, but the philosophy might be ontology, but I forget now. Where it's like, what is knowledge itself? Like, what is this stuff? Like, this is some monkeys aren't primed for this. Like, these are rabbit holes, and they can drive people crazy, straight
yeah,
up and down.
really. And you know
Geminis
what's
can handle
amazing
this shit.
about this? Well, see, that's what's amazing about this. Hold on. I'm trying to see if ontology is what that is, because that's something that's been really coming up. The branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, like epistemology and ontology is so huge, and I think it's amazing that you and I are talking as Geminis, because what epistemology is transforming forever.
Yeah.
Jupiter and Sagittarius squaring Neptune and Pisces. So the whole basis about how we even know we're alive and how we're conscious will never be the same. And it's great that we can like comment on it because we have the Neptune square, we can see Jupiter opposite us. So it's like it's surreal. And this is where, like you mentioned before, Aquarius and Sagittarius can have that chat with God because they're up there. But like I don't want to say we're down there, even though we represent the lower mind, but it's like other than Pisces, we're able to like see the mystical dance and put it in words, kinda. But
Well, that's our job, right? To articulate with language. I think out
yeah,
of all the signs, it's like we're the news reporter, basically.
yes.
Although in a weird way, Virgo's kind of like typing out the story, and we're on the street on the beat, being like, "Live here, checking this shit out. Oh
we're
my god!"
we're basically like saying what's happening live, and then Virgo analyzes it. Like, okay,
That's
this
great.
is what's real. So, and then Sag is like, this is what it means, and then Pisces is like, or whatever. The
Well,
ultimate.
Pisces gets to a point, I guess, and this is why the age of Pisces, whenever we're leaving it, but the unsureness and the wishy-washy kind of like in and out, we're like, we don't know. I think we're going to kick into more of a vibe of like we see like Wittgenstein was this philosopher, and he was like, there's true enough. Like at some point you come to a level and it's like you like, and I'm glad that we're going as deep as we can into the quark and subatomic and quantum and all that stuff. We've hit the limits of cosmology. We've hit like there's certain branches of understanding in science that have closed essentially, where it's like we can't go beyond the background radiation of the Big Bang. That's the end of that story. And that's why I'm not a. I mean, that's why I'm not a material reductionist. Where it's like it's beautiful that okay, I really do think this is not to sound dramatic or weird, but it's like we're in a story, y'all. Like we're in a fucking movie with many subplots. It's like a Where's Waldo movie or
Well,
whatever. Where it's just like,
this is why
but
this is to branch off of that. This is why I say Aquarius is the narrator. Aquarius is the narrator that's writing the story, and ever since 1776, where we started to see classical literature and science go through its bust and revolution, and we just finished this Pluto return, you kind of answered your own question, because everyone alive right now, especially if you're Pluto Scorpio, Pluto Sag, we're
Scorpio.
entering
Sorry.
It's all good. No, Pluto Scorp, we're here.
I
Like,
shout out stupid shit all the time. I'm like, yeah, whoop, whoop. Pluto Scorp gang, let's tear it up.
we're finally entering in the age of the new dawn where we have Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto in Aquarius, meaning that we're literally constructing new knowledge. Like this is the age where we're going to finally be able to answer those questions, because Pluto in Aquarius is literally establishing a whole new cycle of knowledge for us to now answer these questions that this cycle has brought up that we didn't have the technology to answer, which was hidden in plain sight the whole time. Pluto and Sag is going to actually see these entities. Pluto Scorpio is actually going to be reaping, which is, it's surreal, but it's right around the corner. This is where we're going to take fundamental principles of physics that we believe for so long, and they're going to be disproven right before our eyes. And I can't wait. It's so amazing. We're literally
that's the time when it's like, great, you'll do these miracles and more. It's like, this is the and more phase, y'all. Like, we're getting into that gear. Because in a weird way, I made a post the other day showing a picture. I don't remember the quote because that's harder to remember, but some of these images I use, I remember. And one of them, and this isn't Team Rabbit Hole, my wall on Kincaid is like where more of this stuff would be. But and it's Kincaid with a C, brah. But whatever.
Oh, Kincaid. Let me change that. My bad.
Seeing that is like funny, but it's
did you put it as K on purpose on Facebook?
It's KINCAID on Facebook.
Oh, my bad. Oh,
I don't give a shit actually, but I just realized it's like it's not ideal. But anyway, we have 64 likes on this video, by the way. Huzzah! That's a great number. But
KINCAID, right?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, names. What is a name? What is a rose, right? So
make sure names are spelled right because there's power in the name.
So this post I made had a picture of, I think it was Aboriginal art. I don't want to miscredit it, but let's just pretend it is. And they had done this thing where it was like this. Their culture, whether they're on mushrooms or what, I don't know. But somebody shamanistic, the traveler of worlds, somebody in their group just made this image, and they were drawing it on a wall, right? So cave painting, if you want to put it that, but it wasn't caves. It was Aboriginal stuff. So it's older, but not like ancient old. So old as fuck, but not that. It's not 30,000 years. It's like 5,000 years or whatever. And on one hand is this image of their art representation, and it shows over and it shows the Milky Way from the side, and it's like the exact same image. We're entering a place where we can communally together, like groups, all of us at once. We're all the mystics now. I mean, the ability to be initiated is en masse in that sense. Exactly. That's the age of Aquarius, in my thinking, where it's like before it was like there's going to be a few mystics among you who are really pronouncing certain things that are very articulated, but you've got to be on drugs or channeled in, and it's like most people can't get on that wave. But we're at a place now where psychedelics, all these things, and cultural understanding, like we're the inheritors of the dreams of the alchemists. We're the inheritors of we're what they dreamt. When people are like, in this story, this person flew from here to there, like Mercury or whatever. It's like there's going to be a time probably soon where we can get into an Iron Man suit and just float around or do whatever the fuck we want.
But the crazy thing about that is the time is now. That's one thing that's really blown my mind. It's just this like perceptual mind block that we've kind of placed on ourselves. We can fly, we can teleport, we could do all this stuff now. Are
you into Kabbalah at all?
I started to get into Kabbalah recently.
This gets into the tree of life a little. So the tree has 2 pillars, right? And I don't know it enough to really articulate this well, but basically I have
the first one, and then I think the sun is in the middle. That's all I remember. As far as
I couldn't tell you. See, I'm not into the Sephirah enough to be like Gavora, whatever. Like I don't know it that well. I have there's a website called thesyncbook.com. Check it out. They've got crazy far out stuff. That was one of the things I started turning on to in 2012 when I was tripping all the time, listening to people have open-ended conversations about Jung, Crowley, Tarot, all this stuff, and they're pretty knowledgeable, albeit these are people who are more into Crowley and stuff, left-hand path stuff. More, I'm not, but some of the most. David Charles Plate is this one guy. Check him out on Facebook or on that thing, who has said some really beautiful stuff. So so what we have a bicameral mind, right? So we have there was maybe the fall might be this, where at one point we had one mind, and then it I'm not saying this is evolutionarily accurate, but my perception is kind of this, where we had a unified mind, and then it split, and now we have a hemisphere that's logical and linear or whatever, and then imaginative. Well, it's all imagination, but we have one side that's processing and saying it's it's like almost like Virgo Pisces shit, straight up and down. It's that axis in our minds. And what we're starting to realize, like you were saying, it's all here now, but it's in our mind, mental block. In Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal, this is kind of, I don't know if you've seen that movie, it's pretty dope. Basically, that's kind of the story of the mystics and the Skeksis, where it's like these are polar opposites that are once unified are the full being, and like they've been separated and they're warring, and they're not actually necessarily needing to separate in war. But it seems like the place we're in, like we have been warring at ourselves. Basically, we're cut off from ourselves. I mean, in a weird way, it's like the angel with the cherubim sword saying, "Don't come into the garden." That might be in a metaphorical sense, like not being able to access full one-mindedness. And now we're just in this weird place where it's like, well, I'm torn between my intuition and my dreams and my logical framework and how it processes things. Yeah. And that's why it's like we'll dream and then we'll go, oh no, that can't be true. It's like that, oh no, it can't be true, is good for avoiding lions that want to kill you or eating the wrong berries, or like it's evolutionarily productive. Like it helps, that's why it happened. But at some point we're leaning way too hard in the paint in that domain. And we hit the limit of that in modernity. I mean, that's the point of post-modernity, when people are like, what is language? Everything's relative. Everybody's got a story. I mean, that's why we're where we're at in this whole story. So the whole damn point I'm trying to say is, in the Kabbalistic tree of life, it's basically like there's a boa. I mean, it's the high priestess, right? And essentially the card, it's like the two pillars, Joachim and Boaz or whatever. This is where my occult knowledge is not that great, but I've huffed enough fumes of it that I kind of get the essence, right? So it's like, this is Gemini shit. So those two pillars are our mind, or the two sphinx. I mean, I know that's a lot more than that in the tarot cards, where it's like, okay, like the chariot is, it's not necessarily that particularly, but this is a way of expressing that, where it's like we have one hemisphere that's saying, I originate everything. I'm logically this, that, and the other. And that is telling the other hemisphere, which is basically the real originator, that like it's wrong. It's like your dreams are incorrect, but it's like, here's a question that I've thought of, and it's the true, where it's like, what the fuck? What's not imagination? Like, even if you're trying to be concrete with logic, that's imagined. Like you're imagining that. So, I mean, not that it's imagination in terms of like false, delusional or whatever, but it's like to conceive of any concept at all, mentally, spiritually, or anything. It's like you have to be in the imagination to do that. That's why, in a weird way, I think that we're in the mind of God or something. Like this is just a big old,
like we're being thought. I think that's an amazing concept. Like we're all the body. We're like the body in a way, but we're basically thoughts. We're the dream. I agree. I totally agree.
It's like a materialized daydream of super consciousness, whatever that is. But because we're in the image quote of that, like we can do that too. And now it's this weird feedback loop of like, well, the imagination's imagining the imaginer. It's like, it's crazy stuff.
Really?
Well, where do you want to go? Do you want to talk more? I'm realizing.
Let's play the questions game.
Let's do it. It.
You could start off.
Is this like 3 questions kind of thing?
Yep, and it could be about anything.
If you were able to transport yourself to any time period, when and why would that be? Could be future, present, past, whatever.
So that's such a great question. Honestly, so I've learned that time is very Saturnian.
Straight up.
I've actually learned that like you could bring every concept of so we can make time a Venusian concept, but I learned it's very Saturnian, it's very Capricornian. So I have such a deep respect for time that I truly see time travel as one of the grossest violations of sovereign authority. So honestly, I never.
This is an intellectual exercise. Let's just pretend you don't have this conviction right now.
well, no, I know what you mean, but like it's affecting my answer, because knowing that, like, I got to some point.
Here, I'll put it a better way. What time period? We won't go to the future because we don't know what it is. What time period in the past, if any, do you resonate the most with?
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say, bro. I was gonna be like, I wouldn't go to the past. I'd probably go to the future. But I wouldn't go to future to study the present. But if I could go to the past, which is also a really great present. So to answer the first question is, I would just stay present.
Yeah, no, the present. This is the best time to be around. We're on the fucking front row seats to the apocalypse, if you want to put it that way. But it's like this is the best. Like I think we've incarnated here for a very good. It's fucking entertaining. It's interesting as fuck. So for Geminis, we're like, yeah.
I would that's such a good question. I really want to, first of all, I feel like in the 2020s or the 2030s, we'll be able to time travel, like astral project time travel and like actually go back to whatever. So I was going to say I'd want to go back to like the Nicene Council and just like infiltrated and just like
eavesdrop, be like, yo, how are you editing this?
Right,
like,
just
who's
need
got
to
the
find
fucking
a wall.
pen?
Be like, oh, this is what really happened. But honestly, if we're gonna go back, I would want to go back to the very beginning, to before there was form, to really, because I feel like that would give me the context needed to understand, at least at an initial level, everything before there was form, before there was space, like the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah, like let there be this or whatever it was.
Right. Whatever it was.
Am I supposed to answer this too? I don't really know. Like,
no, okay, so I'll ask my question to you.
Word.
What do you feel about Uranus and Taurus? This whole like grounding of this genius energy. What do you feel about that?
All right, because I have a midheaven and a north node in Taurus, and I'm super Uranus and Mercury dominant, basically. This is a weird. I mean, I think I can answer this, but I don't want to come out of a fear place, so I got to be careful how I say this. We're gonna see, and I'm not a prophet, so don't like, sell all your shit, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to Ecuador for a little while, but I'll be around volcanoes, and I'm like, God, I hope these don't blow up.
Oh shit!
Or like that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I think we're about to see in a very real way. I mean, this is obvious, but it's just like fundamental change in such a inspired and unexpected way to how we value things and how we embody things. So like with the North Node Taurus, I'm like, okay, and I was going to ask you this earlier, but I guess I can ask you now. But it's a waste of a question, so I won't. I've always had really bad issues with like money, value, self-worth, that kind of stuff. And I think my destiny is to try to establish a safe kind of, not a kingdom necessarily, but like a colony of thought. That's what the Team Rabbit Hole thing is. It's a space where we can discuss this shit. I want to actually have a place where, I mean, where I'm going in Ecuador for 6 months.
Sounds like 11th house Gemini to me.
Yeah, 1,000%. Right. Yeah. Where it's like, look, we're in this together, but we're going to have to really, we've hit a tipping point. That's the 2012 shit where it's just like, we're not going to be able to do this the same way anymore. But we've got so much steam in the engine going. It's like trying to stop a fucking train with like your bare hands. It's like, okay, this is going to crush a lot of people. I hope the transition's beautiful, simple. We smarten up and we start becoming really creative with how we value things and how we're established in our material domain. So you're starting to see things, whether they're really effectual or not, with like the ocean cleanup machines, or people maybe printing what they need and having one fork, or you know what I'm saying, like just like little things like changing to the degree where it's like we're gonna start we're aware of the impact we're having, but I think sometimes it becomes a very hopeless feeling where it's like, oh my God, I'm nothing and I can't change this and the steam's going full blast. We just have to be caretakers of our domain to the best we can, and because of the Aquarian age kicking in, I think it's really going to kick in like once Pluto's in Aquarius, really.
I believe that.
So I mean, that's when it's
people
like
are not ready. People are not ready. No, and that's why they're ready. That's why they're ready, because they're not ready.
Right. It's the kind of thing. It's like if you saw your whole life right now, like on your deathbed, it's like, could you handle that? You know what I mean? It's like not being aware fully of things helps. Like those veils are there for a reason. Yeah. But long-winded answer is like the changes that are coming are going to be inspirational, but so avant-garde in the best sense. I really hope like the Teslas rise to the top, and like, you know, like I don't really see nationalism being a thing much more. Like I think we're going to start having like collectives of groups that
on that.
You know, it's just like, I don't know if money will be the same thing anymore. Like, that doesn't mean value will disappear. It's just you're going to change in such a dramatic way where I think the authentic, I don't know. I mean, it's a magic show of free will, but with like real power. It's like, how does Luke handle it when he fucking gets out of Dagobah? You know, it's like he knows he's a fucking Jedi and he's got this power. He's like, he doesn't just, it's like his mission upgrades a little in that sense. Or like when Neo wakes up and he's like he's like stopping bullets and bending shit. It's like, that's a radical change. Like at the beginning of the Matrix movie, it's like, oh my God, I have a splinter in my mind. I'm a board programmer, all this shit. Like that's kind of where Taurus has been, where it's like mundane, routine, predictable, good to a point, but like pretty much just like driving things to the ground and to like burning the candle at both ends with the material reality. And I think what we're going to start doing is really tapping into spirit technically, basically. I think we're going to start living more spiritually than ever, potentially. But we have to stay on our toes and stay woke, as they say. So, and doing it with compassion and grace. Because if we run around saying, like, I mean, the French Revolution, the issue there was like, or Mao, or any of these kinds of things revolutions gone wrong, because Uranus is revolution. So it's like, when revolution happens, can you do it with grace? Because it's easy to go cut off a bunch of people's heads, but that doesn't fucking solve much.
And that's the most beautiful thing you said, because that's the harsh reality. This is why I said that no one's ready for this, because if you and that's something that I don't like about how this new age is trying to like make the planets friendly. You know what I mean? Pluto is not friendly. Uranus is not friendly. Neptune is not friendly. Like they're
transpersonal. They're not really worried about people.
Exactly.
In that sense.
So like revolutions are not supposed to be graceful. They're supposed to breed chaos. And that's why it's so beautiful in what you said, because we're going to want change, but we're going to want to have it in a way that doesn't completely ruin or like kill like most people. And that's why I'm like, people are not ready for this. Like, it's just gonna.
And I think definitions of just like norms are going to change, where it's like, you know what? Forever, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but forever, like the American dream or whatever, and like Western progress has been like, be master of your domain, own a lot of things, have status, all this kind of stuff. It's like, we're at a point where I think people are like, I could be a ballin' banker, or I'm not saying everyone's going to go banker to farmer. It's not quite like that, but it's like values are shifting, where it's like, oh, money might not matter the same way if I can't eat, you know, or whatever. Like systems are going to shift because we live in a very precarious system.
Yeah.
Where if like, let's just say there was a solar flare, for God's sake, there would be internet, food production would be weird, nuclear fucking facilities wouldn't be regulated. Like we're in times that we've, like, it's like, do we know how to handle this? This is why I think in a weird way, I mean, I'm not expecting Jesus to manifest particularly, but at some point I think heavy hitting fucking deity type things are going to be present and helping us, and or whatever. Some people might be channeling this shit.
This is why we're going to see the death of faith, because a lot of this was well, I'm not going to say the death of faith is going to transform, but a lot of this is an illusion of peace. The majority, at the end of the day, the majority, like not everyone enters religion to seek truth like us, you know. Like not everyone, a lot of people believe in Jesus. A lot of people believe in whatever religion they believe in because they need
security.
They need something to believe in and be like, okay, if this is okay, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right. Like there's some things, there's some people where like they will not make it the next day, but because they can pray, because they can have faith. Once you take that, you know what I mean? Who are they? So that's what this new age is going to challenge heavily. We're entering a period where the whole notion, like the illusion of peace, we're not safe. Like anyone can walk up with a semi-automatic weapon or a knife, or somebody can get possessed, or someone can just lose themselves, right? Before we talk about what mentioned it and slaughter people. So we're going to see.
But I would hope consciousness is evolving and gestating, like I said way earlier, where it's like we're coming out of the lower chakras.
It
have to be in the heart.
It's going to have to. But like, because people are given more liberties, we're going to see the increased frequency of school shootings, of shootings. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. When the cage gets rattled, some monkeys bite. It's like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is what it is.
You have so many groups of people who have been bottling up oppression, suppression, depression, and Pluto and Aquarius is going to, and people are going to snap. And that's going to be the most dangerous part about this like Pluto Aquarius and new age that we're stepping into, where of course that's not going to be the whole. I think we're going to be able to regulate that at some point, which might either.
Well, that's where personal practice kicks in. It's like meditation, breathing, exercise, eating well, like loving your neighbor as yourself, namaste shit. It's like if you're brainwashing, everything's brainwashing. So if you're programming yourself with the healthier programming, the likelihood of defaulting to total chaos is less likely, not impossible, but less likely. I mean, Peter chopped off a dude's ear when he felt threatened. It's like, you were fucking with Jesus for multiple years, bro. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Peter was about that life, though. He was like,
he was Aries, Mars and Aries.
Live by the sword, die for the sword. You ain't gonna arrest my homie. And then he turned around and denied him 3 times. Like, that's the whole.
He's an Aries, like more like whatever, like all, like everything Aries. Like, he just, because at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I don't want to wash your feet. Oh, you got to wash your feet. Okay, wash all of me. It's like, all right, man. Like, you're committed. Like, are you thinking about this, or are you just like putting it in? Like, come on.
And it's one thing that Peter did. I realized there's a little bit of Peter in all of us, because
for sure.
When Jesus went through the transfiguration and he saw Moses and he saw Elijah, and then Peter's like, we need to make a tabernacle. We need to make, and then Jesus is like, put him to sleep. And he's that's like when we
Jedi trick.
It's like when we see synchronicities and we're like, oh, I need to show this master number we just saw. I need to show social media. I need to
Well, it's a paradox, because it's good to a point, but anything can be overindulged in a way. So I think it's beautiful. Like, there's a joy unspeakable, if you want to put it that way, when I see certain numbers pop up. Like, my left ear just started ringing, right? That doesn't mean anything to you. But like, where I'm at with my spirit, like, we're guided, but we have to be very careful. It's like fear and trembling, wise as serpents, gentle as doves kind of thing, where it's like, think about this shit, but think about it through love. You hear what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not a hippie, but I sound like one, I'm sure. I haven't written down a question, so I got to think of one, I guess. What card in the deck, in terms of, you could say any card if you want, but what major arcana? Okay, you know the deck enough where I can say this and you're not going to be all confused. I won't be able to articulate, like, oh, 10 of swords as well. But like, what major arcana and minor arcana, so this is going to be 4 cards you're going to say, right? So it's like these 2 and this 2. Which major and minor arcana most resonate with your encapsulation of embodiment, where you are in this, like, now? Like, who are you now? If you were to pull 2 cards and make, death and 10 of swords, it's like, what is that? Where are you? And what 2 do you think are antithetical, like exactly not where you are at?
Such a good question. So someone asked me this before, and I was driving and I forgot to mention a card that actually became my favorite over time, because I didn't pay much attention to it, but I love it. So as far as major, I really love the Hermit. I really love the Magician. But I think where I'm at right now is Temperance.
Word.
14 card. Like that, I've been underestimating Temperance so much. And that's where I'm at in my life, where I have to actually transform my life and now really put it in moderation, good management. But my favorite card right now, bro.
Well, it's not even about favorite. It's like, what are you? Like,
what are you? Yeah. So what?
Where are you at?
Ironically, the minor that's my favorite is where I'm at right now, and it's right after the 6 of Wands, the 7 of Wands.
I pulled that card I didn't pull any right now, but today when I was playing my guitar, right before I started fucking around, I was like, oh, I'm going on the Peace Dealer, because I'm very ritualistic with tarot pulls, and I'm like, it's not like, I'm not consulting the deck for everything, right? And the card I pulled for our conversation was 7 of Wands. FYI.
Thank you. That's my card right now. That's that. Like, I underestimated it, but actually experiencing it really made me realize, like, first of all, how amazing the number 7 is, but the specifics of that card is all about maintaining the advantage when almost everyone thinks that what you believe either doesn't make sense, is crazy, and it's having to stand your ground. It's having to stand up for yourself. It's having to actually maintain your advantage, and to where you not having the popular opinion is actually making you have the advantage.
Yeah.
And not just
I mean,
that.
to think about the early, like we talked for an hour on Christianity. I don't know how popular that was. You know what I mean? Like this conversation's been super seven of wands to me.
Oh, yeah.
So that's funny that you said that. What two? I guess I mean you can lump them together or whatever. You can say one if you want. Are just like, I mean, we resonate with all of them. But like, what are you? Where are you not at?
That's a good question. I would say the moon's coming up, but I don't want to believe that. I really like the moon.
I don't want to believe that. That's the truth right there. I love it when I pull something like, no. Let's try that.
Yeah, I do that too much.
Not often, but it happens. Well, I mean, why would you think the moon? I guess why did that come to mind?
It just came up as an intuition, so I don't want to say that's where I'm not at because I'm wanting to develop my psychic abilities. It's also my birth card, the Hermit and the Moon, because I'm Life Path 9, so I resonate really strongly with those.
I'm a Life Path 1. Huzzah.
See, I don't know why I keep meeting double Geminis who are Life Path 1s. So not only are you a new moon, but you're Life Path 1, which are both beginning. So everyone watching this chat, you've just walked into a rabbit hole that's going to simulate something new. So keep that in mind. I'm really starting to step into the utilization of energies where you can, and that's so Capricorn to say, but it's like,
1,000%.
You can alchemize people's energies. You could, because it's free, like your aura is free. There's so much that we're probably not using. So it's like something to keep in mind. But yeah, I guess as a minor arcana, I want to say 10 of Swords because I just don't want that.
Oh, fuck that. Yeah, right. It's like,
but it doesn't work for us because that's Sun in Gemini. So I feel like the Gemini's relationship with the 10 of Swords is special because that's our card. So it's like we're the lords of ruin in a certain way. I can see how I could ruin experiences, but I feel like it's not as bad for us because
I think that's the naivete of the Gemini, where it's like, oh my God, think about how many lessons we have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because most people are honestly mature enough not to fucking play with fire and get burned in the same way. Like we're just like, oh, whoops, I just dropped acid on my fucking clothes. Now it's like I'm dissolving. Like we fuck around in different domains so freely that it's like it's like Jurassic Park when the power goes out. It's like dinosaurs are everywhere. It's like anything can kind of happen. Like we're limitless in terms of that domain categorization.
I feel like in terms of tarot though, the swords, because if you look at wands, 8, 9, 10, the 8 of wands is positive. The 9 of wands is more so a lesson. The 10 of wands is burden, but it could be success. 8, 9, 10, or 9 and 10 of cups, very positive. 9 and 10 of pentacles, very positive. I feel like the air signs got limited. It's like occultly a mental block. I feel like the true 8, 9, and 10 of swords is supposed to represent states of mental supremacy, but they're blocked. They're like the worst cards in the tarot. And they're Gemini ruled, which I feel is like throwing shade at Gemini, to be honest. I feel like,
well, dude, everything's got dark and light in that sense. So it's like we can't have all the fun. Like for all the joy we experience, there's gonna be some fucking heartache.
But it would be better if it was a reverse card interpretation instead of like the actual. Like, if I ever remade the tarot, I would make the 9 and 10 like actually dignified instead of.
If you're ever interested, because I've talked to I've got a friend in Australia, and I've talked to a few people. I'm dead set at some point for maybe doing a Team Rabbit Hole tarot deck that's loosely based off of fucking the Rider-Waite stuff, but like up 2.0 style. Like,
yeah, I think it's tricky. We're here for. I think that's what our generation is literally like. I think that's what our generation is here for, to be honest.
Yeah, we're here to upgrade the fucking Pony Express, bro. Like, we're taking it to the stars.
So my next question for you, great question, by the way, really great question.
Sure.
My next question for you is actually let's go based off of this. Like, what are like 3 key ways we are going to upgrade everything we already, because our generation has such a stigma. Like, to the world, we're stupid millennials, unfortunately, even though and let me not say, actually, no.
It's the Joseph story, bro. I mean,
Yes,
that's how I look at it. Where it's
Joseph.
like,
Oh, yes.
I mean, not to always be alluding to the Bible, but and for the record, I'm not an authority, so these are just my impressions. It's not like I'm like I know, I sense this is what it's like. This is my off the cuff interpretation, but who knows? There's maybe magic here. So, Joseph shit came to mind immediately, where it's just like, look, man, he had the gift, and his family didn't know how to grok it. Like it wasn't. They were just like not having it. And
So
we don't
real.
know really what that looked like, but at the end of the day, they were willing to pretend he died and throw him into fucking slavery. It's like they were willing to sell him out. And I think, I mean, maybe that was more normal back then. That kind of like not real familial love. I mean, at the end of the day, it's rough. But I think where we're at is like we have to know that we're capable of doing anything that anybody who quote rules or is our sovereign does. Like the Queen of England, Trump, any of these people, they're people. Now they're channeling potentially archetypes and doing all sorts of magic and all sorts of like they're doing different things, but guess what? We can do that too and more or whatever. So it's like we shouldn't be afraid, but we should be like. There's a difference between like being rash. I think what's happened is we haven't. When I say we, humanity doesn't seem to have had a temperance for power. Generally, it seems we gull them out really hard, really quick. We're like, I'm going to always wear the ring, and it's like, oh, that consumed us. Oh my god. Um, if we can really be tempered people and I think that's where humility and grace and compassion and all this stuff kicks in, and that's why I'm a Christian, where it's like I need something outside of myself to remind myself that it's not all about me,
True.
even though it's really tempting to be that way. um, if we can tap into, I mean, I don't know, three things. I'm just thinking I'm not even gonna get into three things. It's like that's really it. Like just realize we are all Joseph, and some more than others. I think straight up Jonah. Like that's the story that I resonate the most probably with in the Bible.
I
But
was
it's like
thinking of Joseph like just yesterday, so I love that you mentioned.
that's what's up. See, there's a reason for that. But the idea being like his dreams were his golden ticket, and he was authentic, and he never lost his authenticity. That's the damn bottom line. He never was like doubting himself. He was like, I've got this power. We don't know really the narrative in his mind. We don't get that. But if he was in jail potentially for like almost like a decade or whatever, it's like at year two, I'd be like, fuck this, or whatever. Like he held on to his dreams. He was even interpreting dreams in prison, got him out. That's how he got out, rose to power. And because of his position, he was able to save his people group. That people group ultimately becomes Jews, which creates the Christ. I mean, it's like we need to just remember our sovereignty well. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like, yeah, with great power comes responsibility. That's great. Thanks, Stanley. But what we really need to remember is just like doing things well, and that requires wisdom and humility. So it's like this is where Gemini kicks in, 11th house Gemini for sure, where it's just like ask your brother and sister what they think. Like be willing to metacognate and munch on other ideas. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. That doesn't mean you have to jump out of your comfort zone completely all the time. Although psychedelics and meditation and stuff can help with that. But what we really need to be ultimately doing is pushing our limits and owning our sovereignty in a new way, like a refined way. The internet has allowed us, I think, largely to see how much power we eat. Like we can create culture ourselves. Like we don't have to like the beat of the drum of the like the American whatever like nationalism. Like for a long time, I was like, oh my god, Germany versus America. Like there was a story going on that people had to be a part of. We're at a point now where it's like just have internet access and do your thing and try to do it nicely. Like play well nicely.
True that.
Okay, so this is my last question for you, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, let me think for a second.
Take your time, kind sir.
This has been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I know it was random. I basically hit you up randomly. I was like, what am I watching? And you're like, oh, Team Rabbit Hole, come on. And that was a while ago, but this was cool. Like I enjoy this. I hope we talk in our personal lives. Like I hope to meet you at some point. Like you're cool. So not to fanboy out too hard, but it's just like you're cool. I think that if people with certain, it's like with our powers combined stuff. I think if enough people in certain segments of thought and audience and influence authentically come together for the right reasons, like that's the next culture makers.
And
like,
you just described the purpose of the Age of Aquarius. We all coming together.
Word. Okay, I guess my question would be if you had any advice to give people who, because I get engrossed in the story of like when I'm listening to you and Apollo Deity and all these Leo King and stuff, I'll get into the story and stuff. What would be the biggest piece of advice to not lose hope or inspiration?
The biggest piece of advice to not
Like
lose.
how should we be tending our fire as to not go out, because the winds are going to be blowing pretty hard soon, I think. So
Yeah. So I think that's the best question you could have asked, because that's what we need to know. So the way the enemy or the dark forces work is, at the best way they work is through guilt. If you're caught feeling guilty about something, if you're caught feeling shame, you need to stop immediately. There's no redeeming quality to feeling guilt, to feeling shame. It closes chakras, and it is solely meant to manipulate you. You could reflect on actions in your life that you're not proud of with loving your heart and reflecting on it, literally, not throwing yourself under the bus. People feel like they need to be guilty about things. People feel like they need to be shameful about things. All of those, it is completely a lie. It is completely a dark force tactic to close your chakras and not accept yourself. And so the best thing I can say is to do your best to live in your heart. And I'm telling myself that too, because I live so much in my head as a Gemini. But like,
heard
there's a difference between like being in love and just thinking positive. Because when we say stuff like this, people could take it as, oh, just be positive and don't be negative. But you just have to remember that, like, it's the most basic cliche advice, but it's like, this present moment is a gift. And there's infinite possibilities where in this one moment you can get out of any single thing that you feel is an issue. Having the whole wherewithal to focus your intent and to feel the emotions that you want to step into, especially before you go to sleep. Feel the emotions you want to feel before you wake up. I didn't realize how powerful this is, but
are you a manifesting generator? Like, what are you in terms of the human design?
projector.
Okay, I don't know if I'm a manifester, but what you're saying is about manifestation, and it's trite to a point, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Cliches are cliches for a fucking reason. So it's like,
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
like if we're gonna come from our heart, it's like, I totally hear you. It's baby steps. So it's like
Baby steps, yeah. And I'm not trying to say just be positive, but given
that helps.
it helps a lot. It really helps a lot. Like, just smile if you don't feel, but given what we're stepping into, don't commit spiritual bypass where you don't explore these things. But when you explore, because it's all gonna come up, but when you explore these things that make you feel vulnerable, enjoy it, embrace it. Shame and guilt is only going to come from a willingness to not embrace these facets of yourself. So you have to, and the advice I have really to really wrap this up is, any place that you feel you're afraid of, is challenging to you, is an obstacle, you need to run directly towards that. Don't try and look for the I used to be the shortcut guy. I wanted to be the reality hacker, and I love like biohacking. So I don't mean biohacking, but like, I wanted to be the reality hacker. I wanted to find the shortcut, the way around stuff. And maturity has taught me that, you need to go directly towards what it is you're afraid of. You need to go directly towards the obstacle, because what you want is literally in the obstacles that you might be avoiding. And
that reminds me of a story real quick. When I was in high school, I played football, and my freshman year I went out for the team, and I was like, I mean, I had played middle school football, but it's like high school's like fucking war. It's like real shit. It's not, they're killing each other. There's not, it's not just like kind of standing up, pushing around. It's like you're tackling and all this stuff. Anyway, we're doing the 2 days, and I don't even know what I did, but there's this huge African-American guy. I don't know if I stepped on his toe or said something, but he was like, he lined up in line in this tackling drill. He's like, I'm going to get you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to die. Like, his name was Darius. Like, I'm 6'2", and he was playing 7 foot.
Damn.
Yeah. And I remember this because I started like, it was like, I'm going to piss myself. I'm so scared. Like, I was shaky. Yeah, my freshman year.
Yo, it's crazy. I had a run-in with a guy named Darius in high school too, who wanted to fight me.
Are Gemini's just attracting Darius types? Hold on, I'm wrapping up something, but I'll talk to you a second. Like 5 minutes. My sister just drove into town, so I'll have to hang out. But we're almost done, so it's all good. Timing. Yeah, she's cool. She's got engaged recently. She's here with her fiance. But to wrap up that story, and then I guess you have a question, and then we got to go. Basically, he's in line. He's like, I got you. I got your number. Like, you're going down. He's saying all sorts of talking so much shit. I'm sitting there just like, I'm a freshman. I mean, this is a senior. He's 7 foot, probably 300 pounds or something. And I'm like 6'2". I'm big, but I'm like not. He was making me feel small. I'm just like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And I get up and I'm like starting to like tear up and like getting emotional. I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, this is Mars and Cancer shit for sure. I'm just like, oh my God, here it comes. And basically, dude, I mean, he wanted to tear my head off, but the drill was basically just like on hike, we would stand up and basically like push each other. It's kind of like who's going to win this, like king of the mountain kind of thing. But just between linemen, I guess. Right. So, anyway, I'm like pissing myself, literally starting to get emotional, like barely keeping it together. And literally, I like what you're saying. I was like, I have to just push through this. And it was like downset hike, and I just stood up and I planted so hard. He didn't push me back, and I just held my ground. And he was really fucking like, I didn't get dominated, basically. I held my ground, and I should have probably got my ass kicked. And the coach blows his whistle, and I'm like amazed I'm alive. And he kind of like looked at me. He was shocked this had happened. He like gave me a nod of respect. He didn't give me any shit after that. It was like, you have to tackle your Goliaths, dude.
Yeah.
Like walking away from that shit is only how it festers and causes way more neuroses and weird shit to happen. And that doesn't make it easy. I was about to piss myself literally. I was tearing up literally. It's like I was on the edge of like physical breakdown, right? Like mental, like I was like, like freaking out as much as one could at that age or whatever. And what the grace of God, or how, between God and my tenacity, or however you want to put this, it's like, hold your ground. And that's like, the storm will pass over you in a weird way.
True that. Very well said. Very well said. I guess my final question for you is, if a genie came to you and asked you and wanted to grant you a wish concerning the direction society, I want to make it more 11th house theme. Like if you could change society, if you could change the way the world connects, what wish would you make for the collective?
To remember we're all in it together. I mean, we tend to just think of ourselves and how it affects us, but it's like we are manifestations of the divine expressing individual articulations. I mean, it gets weird. We can debate this. We can have opinions, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like we're all embarked. We're all on a weird trip together. Like, try to honor that and respect that kindly. Like, play well, nicely with others, and play nicely with yourself. It's a playground. It's all a playground of experience. And sometimes you fall and break an arm. Sometimes you fucking chase a girl on the playground and want to tag her. Sometimes, you play hide and go seek. Sometimes it's Marco Polo. There's games within games. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, the only reason people get into those games on the playground and can have all these adventures of tag and all this shit is because they're willing to put down a level of self and commit to a bigger group thing. And it's like, oh, I'll play tag. Okay, I'll play this. And maybe you have different roles and all this stuff. That's fine. But at the end of the day, be willing to engage playfully, joyfully, if you want to put it that way, creatively, well with others. And if we really, it's stupid cliches at this point, but it's like, we are each other. We're in this together. Like, we're all expressions of each other in very different places. So it's like, look out to anything, whether it's the weather or political systems or whatever, and be like, that's me to a point at some level. How can I know more about myself through this? How can I it's this weird dance. We're in a dance of being. And if people remembered that, I think a lot more interesting things would happen. But what we tend to do is just think of ourselves mostly for some reason. And maybe we're developing out of that. There's always going to be an ego monad point of view. So it's like, in a weird way, in Buddhism, the whole point is like, we're living to learn how to die. And I'm not going to be that morbid about it, but it's like, we need to live to learn how to be well with each other. Basically, I mean, that might not all be lovey, mushy, all this stuff. Like it can look different. It doesn't all have to be hippie,
We could
rose-colored
still
glasses.
disagree with each other. We could still dislike each other, but we still have a common consensus. I get from
We
that.
have an obligation of being. I mean,
Yeah.
we're embarked on this trip together. So what? I mean, when I hurt you, I hurt myself, and if I build you up, I build myself up too. So if we stop worrying about ourselves and trying to get our own, like we'll start realizing investing in others well is how we become more happy, more full, and all this stuff. That's what I found to be the truth. It's like there was a long period of time when I was very, I mean, the South Node of Scorpio, early part of my like quite frankly, Saturn return, because I'm 33, so a few years up until, I mean, maybe a little longer, but basically I was very self-absorbed. With Leo rising, it comes that way too, where it's just like I cared about other people as much as it was interesting, and now I'm starting to kick more into Taurus North Node and stuff, where it's just like, look, we have to value a little differently, and like I mean, it's tricky because it's not an absolute one thing or the other. Like you have a perspective and that really matters to you, but at the end of the day, you're going to put that perspective down at some point in a way, and you're going to like look at all the perspectives everybody's putting down. It's crazy. Just enjoy the ride, I guess would be my advice. But to enjoy the ride means to do it well, and to do it well means to do it wisely and compassionately.
And I'm a big believer that the highest form of currency is the 11th house Aquarius friendship. It's
That's
there's
I
nothing more.
mean, Jesus said he's like no greater love than to lay down your life for a brother. You don't have to actually die. You just have to die to yourself in a conceptual way. I mean, that's what it is. It's like your ego has to die in a certain kind of way. And when it does, that's when you're part of the symphony. In a weird way, you kind of see it with the Toy Story movie where it's like Buzz and Woody are egos. And it's like one is the space cadet who's coming in, alien forces or whatever other, if you want to put it that way, Uranus very much is like space, all this shit. Woody is like the star, and his whole ego understanding of self and place is challenged, and there's conflicts, and the whole reason they get into big deals is they get in a fight in a car. I mean, I don't remember if you know the Toy Story movies, but like his Woody's inability to accept others well is why they get into their conflicts in the story. Like that's why the tension happens. That's why they're at the pizzeria in the alien ball pit or whatever that is. Like, but eventually they have to let. It doesn't mean he becomes a space cadet. It's like he doesn't lose himself fully, but he has to submit certain levels of his identity and selfhood in certain ways to best gel with the others. If I mean, it's like that's just the way it is. It's an ecosystem. We've forgotten. We're so. I mean, you know that meme, ego, eco kind of thing. We've forgotten how ecologically united we are. We're in a fucking terrarium of being. Like everything is united. Everything is not one, but it's all one system. And it's like when you remember that, it goes a fucking long way.
True that, brother. True that. I'm
Word.
definitely gonna invite you back on for more topical conversations. We love you out here, man. Some people already said this is their favorite peace talk, so
Ooh.
definitely dope. How can people reach you if they want to chat?
Well, like I said, I'm in Fairhope, Alabama, visiting my nana right now. I've been living in Colorado. I'm in Alabama, like Mobile, Alabama, basically, visiting. I'm going to Florida to fly out from Jacksonville to Quito on Tuesday, and I take a 6-hour bus from Quito up into Alausi, up in the mountains of Ecuador, to go pet sit for 6 months. 4 dogs, 4 cats, and 7 alpaca. I'll have Wi-Fi and I'll have my electric guitar. So I think I'm going to be really working on a lot of music and a lot of kind of interviews, podcasts, connecting all that stuff. What I'm saying is I'm in a very transition mode right now. The best way to hit me up on Facebook, message me, holler. I've got my phone number on there. Don't call me, but it's like that's got all my shit. It's got my email. It's got whatever, and that's going to keep kind of people abreast on where I'm at personally and any developments otherwise.
Nice. And what?
Said Jim Kincaid on Facebook, JimKincaid.
And I got the link to the Facebook group, Team Rabbit Hole, in the box below. Do you have any word of advice for people? Do you have any final word of advice for people who are walking this spiritual path?
Be authentic. Be authentic with yourself. And that means being real with, I mean, you get this shit. Be real with yourself, with others. And that isn't going to always be easy, but it's going to be the most true thing you can do. And it's going to be the best thing you can do.
Beautiful.
Word.
Much
All
agreed.
right, brother. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Likewise, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you guys for staying tuned. And Zanise said, I bet you two could talk for hours. Yes, we could. So,
Yeah, we should. But anyway, future life, future stuff. Adios, my friend.
all right. Peace out, bro.